And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
Attention to roll call. What's up, everybody? Good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning. Eric's going to be out this morning. He's traveling back to America. He's getting out of Alaska before it starts snowing. So a little trek. He wants to, it turns winter there pretty early. So he's headed back to the lower 48, as he likes to call it. So yes, he'll be back. He'll be back with us on Wednesday. So he just needed the day today. So, I think everyone saw over the weekend, there was an attack at the 73rd Precinct. Perpetrator was killed as a result of it, but an officer had her face slashed also as a result. Perpetrator shows up at about 5 o'clock in the morning to the 73rd Precinct, tries to get into the front door, is unable to get in the front door, strolls around the back of the precinct, and that's when he's attempting to gain access through the back of the 73rd Precinct, and officer slashed as a result. So we're going to get into all that this morning, plus whatever else is in the news related to the NYPD, New York City politics. So thanks for joining us. Marlon, what's up, brother?
Hey, good morning, John. Morning, chat. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Some of you guys always saying that we're going to run out of content, but yeah, trust me, with the way things keep going, we're never going to run out of content. There's always some nonsense going on. And as you can see, every time we get to Monday, it's like there's more things going on in the news cycle than we actually have time to talk about it. And certainly in this case, we've actually talked about it before without actually talking about it, because there's some failures here which could have been prevented. And there's some way, in a lot of ways, we're repeating the past here, because this isn't the first time this has happened in recent history. So, I'm anxious to get to it. And I think we're going to have a great conversation here today. And
So the one thing is, I think this whole entire situation is being completely downplayed by the NYPD. And I think the NYPD kind of dictates how the media reports on this. I don't care if the person was a stone cold EDP. If you're going into a precinct with a knife with the intent to injure, maim, or kill an officer, it's an act of domestic terror. I mean, I don't care what your mental state is at the time. I don't think any of that matters to me whatsoever. I don't think it matters at all, on a factual basis. The fact of the matter is, if you're out there to injure, kill, or maim a police officer, you are a domestic terrorist at the moment you're doing that. Now, the reasoning behind that is whatever, but it's an act of domestic terrorism. Would you agree with that statement, Marlon? Should this have been looked at, or is it proper the way that the media is excuse me, or is it proper the way the media is reporting this?
Well, they barely gave us anything so far, and it should be, because as we've seen throughout the country, especially since in the BLM Antifa era, we've seen numerous attacks and ambushes on police, and we've talked about it in the past that a lot of these departments they want to downplay it as much as they can, because there are a lot of implications from it, implications in terms of how good of a job they've done as a police department, and the problems within that police department. In this case, of course, the NYPD doesn't want to talk about it, because again, we had a similar incident that happened back in 2020. If you can remember, in 2020, there was a EDP that he had already, I believe he had already fired shots at officers in the Bronx, and then he went into the 4-1 and he started firing rounds. I believe he hit 2 cops, but that was a big deal back then. And here we are again, just 5 years later, and we're seeing another instance of somebody easily walking past walking into a precinct. So the department, I don't think, wants to talk about this. And since the election is just we're going on a month and a half away, they definitely don't want to talk about another domestic instance of lone wolf, possible lone wolf domestic terrorism.
Right. I mean, I think like that. I think that's even downplaying it. Honestly, I think even relating it to 2020, because I really what's happening is if you see law enforcement, particularly the NYPD, assaults on NYPD are up over 50%. For like the entirety of Adams' term, and it's being downplayed as well. It's a result of them going out there and being proactive. When news clip after news clip, we don't see any proactive cops. There's very, very few portion. There's a very small, minor portion in the NYPD that's engaged in active, on the street, proactive enforcement. Very few. It's not a lot of cops. So the majority of attacks on cops are just coming. They're just standing there in uniform, or they're in their precinct. We've had numerous attacks at precincts. So I think, I think it's being downplayed because how could you say that? How could you sit there and tell the public crime's down, you're safe in the subways, you're safe on New York City streets, when cops aren't safe in uniform standing on New York City streets, cops aren't safe in uniform in the subways, and cops aren't safe in uniforms at a precinct with other cops. So, I mean, that's why the downplay is there. So I wouldn't even go as far back as 2020. I would go through all of the assaults that have happened on cops where it's unrelated or not stemming from an instance of resisting arrest. But even those highlight the lack of care and the lack of fear of prosecution, the fear that you're actually going to suffer a consequence for assaulting an officer, regardless if it's a resisting arrest case or if you're actually initiating the physical confrontation with the police, which we see daily. I mean, how many content creators are out on the streets in New York every day, and their content related is just starting with police officers? They're literally picking physical fights and being confrontational with police officers, and we see things that we would have never seen 5-10 years ago. Never. We see people with a camera directly in someone's face, directly up on their body, taking away their whole peripheral vision, their whole ability to walk, have cops pinned up against walls. These are things that would have never happened 5-10 years ago based upon training, because you would understand how dangerous that situation is, and you would understand the grave circumstance you're put in. So I think the reason for the downplay is just that, is we got an election to win here, people, and we got to pretend like I am the public safety mayor, even though public safety has declined in New York City over this last decade. And particularly under the Adams administration, you could blame it on de Blasio all you want, but it's happened. The real decline has happened during Eric Adams' tenure. So, I mean, that's what's happening here. Let's downplay everything that's happening in the media. Everything's a lone instance. Everything has nothing to do with what's happening out there. And the reality is we lost omnipresence. The police department is not looked at as a position of authority. Police officers have been undermined in society, and they're not looked at, and you don't look at a police officer or violate a law and feel like you're going to get prosecuted as a result of that. Whatever happens on that street, I'll be in that precinct for a few hours and I'll be out.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I actually think it's an even bigger problem than that, and that, as you said, assaults on cops have been up. In 2024 they were up 41%, and in that's 41% from I believe 2022 and 60% from 2019. So they've been up. And besides the statistics, you can see it in the news. You can see it in, like you said, social media. How many videos have we seen on social media of cops? You're trying to stop a guy or put him in cuffs, and then all of a sudden, and next thing you know, the guy is in a wrestling match or a boxing match with a cop. So I think what's happening is that where I don't think the department wants to talk about it. Is in a lot of ways we're seeing a breakdown of society. In a lot of these blue states and blue cities, you see we have the convergence of a lot of things. You have you have DAs that don't want to prosecute. You have all the changes to the laws that have made it the pro criminal changes to the laws that have kind of inhibited hands-on policing, like we've talked many times before, the diaphragm law and such. And on top of all of that, I think what we're seeing is we're seeing like a lot more EDPs on the street, and certainly in the subways. And I think the thing that isn't being talked about is a sense of hopelessness by the young people. And when people have that sense of hopelessness, it kind of affects morality, and it makes them kind of angry at the system. And who do they tend to strike out in that anger to? Its police. You see it all the time. You see it in the protests where whatever issue we could be talking about nationally, it always comes down to the police. And I think that the city and the department, on top of not wanting to talk about it because of the election, I don't think they want to talk about it because a lot of the problems they have no solutions for. In fact, as we said before, many of the solutions would impact like progressive policies, and they don't want to change. Basically, it'd be like asking them to change progressivism, and they don't want to confront a lot of the problems that their policies have caused. So I think the issue is a large one, and I think the danger going forward is that as the economy gets worse and young people get more desperate, and I think that sense of nihilism might get even worse. And this is why the department has to really look at itself and look at the security of precincts. And in general, officers have to always be aware of what's going on now, because people are angry at things and they're going to take it out on cops.
No, yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. And that's why I laugh right now when, we have Jessica Tisch as being the public safety police commissioner. You have Eric Adams as the public safety mayor. You have all of people who really have bought into this progressive mindset. Rebecca Weiner as the head of counterterrorism and intelligence. And yet they're supposed to be the public safety minded, common sense public safety, when they've literally emboldened everything that we're seeing right now. All of it. When we talk about the legislation, like, I love how everyone is mad at bail reform, but in 2020, go back and look at who they were and where they stood on bail reform. And I know we had Corey on Friday, and he's got an episode with Jumaane Williams on it. And I think Jumaane Williams is defending bail reform. I haven't seen the episode yet, but I saw a little clip where he was like kind of defending bail reform. And the thing that like makes me laugh about all these progressives, it's that like, yeah, the idea behind bail reform was a good idea. Like, you shouldn't sit in jail waiting court just because you're poor. Right? Like, you shouldn't, like, if let's just say minor offense, right? You got arrested for smoking marijuana when you were whatever. You got caught when it was still illegal, right? So you get arrested, and now for whatever reason, you have a prior history, nothing bad, but you have a prior history, and now you have to wait until you see a judge, right? What they're saying is that you shouldn't sit in jail during the whole time of your court case. Like, you shouldn't be in Rikers. You should be able to get out. They're putting the claim that, they've taken the father and saying, well, the father didn't pay child support. So he doesn't have money. So we send him to Rikers, and he can't bail himself out. He has no money, and now he's going to lose his job. And now he really can't pay child support. He was struggling, trying to, but we're keeping him in Rikers. So if bail reform's there, we could let him out, right? And I'm like, okay, you take those minor scenarios, the guy smoking marijuana, the guy maybe with a petit larceny, not a repeat offender, not a violent felon, not someone who sexually assaulted someone, not someone who's carrying a illegal firearm. But what they did is they took all of those people and they were like, oh, yeah, them too. Them too. So nobody sits in Rikers anymore. That's why Rikers is down. The numbers in Rikers are down significantly. And then the idea was, oh, well, we're just going to get rid of Rikers and we're going to build these borough-based jail and spend billions and billions of dollars. But the problem is, even with the diminished numbers in Rikers Island, the new borough-based jails still can't house the number of people they have in Rikers Island currently. So all of this stuff is like, none of it makes sense. It's like, yeah, the idea behind bail reform was great. The implementation of it was horrific. I mean, it basically kept violent repeat offenders out on our streets, and that's what it is. But when I look now, you have Jamani Williams, kudos to him for at least still standing, saying, no, this is a good thing and this is what we need to do. So he's telling you who he is and what he believes. But then you have people like Eric Adams who are now pretending like it's the worst thing that ever happened and completely distancing himself from it. Meanwhile, he was standing on the sidelines in 2020 with his pom-poms and a cheerleading outfit, cheering it on. B-A-I-L. You know, it's like it's ridiculous to me. And I'm like, this is the guy that we're sitting here saying that's going to keep New York City safe. Oh no, let's make it Cuomo. Let's vote for Cuomo, the guy who wouldn't pass a budget in New York State without bail reform in it, even though he didn't understand what happened in bail reform. And he's still sitting there telling you bail reform's a good thing. And the reality of it is bail reform, the idea is great, but it was implemented horribly. Why was it implemented horribly? Because we elect a bunch of morons to pass law. That's what it is. I mean, so I agree with you. When you look at the progressive mind, they're trying to distance themselves from what they've created. And they're trying to sit there and say, all right, we'll save you now. It's like, you'll save us. You created this whole thing. We told you this was going to happen 2019, 2018, 2020. Nobody listened.
Yeah. I don't think they have a plan, John. And the thing is, like, you know, as we said many times before, public safety was a platform of Eric Adams, you know, and he's failed at that, you know. So what's the plan going forward? You know, I see no solutions but stopgap measures that just, you know, we're just plugging gaps and trying to kick the can down the road, and I don't see any sort of long-term plan for a lot of these problems. And so those of you joining us late, I see a couple of people in the chat asking what happened in the 7-3. So what happened over the weekend? I believe it was early yesterday. An EDP managed to get into the back of the 7-3, and he pulled out a knife when he was stopped in the I guess in the lobby, and he then attacked a female officer. She managed to block the attack, but still received a wound to her head and to her ear. And then he ran out, and some other officers gave chase. I'm not sure if she was involved, but they gave chase and then confronted him, and he tried to lunge at him, and they fired, and he's deceased. He was transferred to the hospital and died there. But yeah, a lot of the problems we're facing are the consequences of just hubris and arrogance and thinking that you know all this progressivism is the solution to you know, in a lot of ways, problems created by progressivism, you know. And as we said on the last show, like Eric Adams himself was running against Eric Adams 1.0. And unfortunately, I don't even think Eric Adams 2.0 has a solution for this when he gets back into office. Because again, one of my questions for this incident is that how many officers were actually in the precinct at the time? You know, does the precinct actually have the extra manpower to devote to a permanent station house security post? Because I'm saying that these problems are going to get worse, and that you might see more of these brazen attacks against the police inside station houses, and that the department needs more security. But at the same time, where are they going to find the manpower to do it? You know.
Well, one, you know, there should be station house security at all times, and there should be actually a real station house security, and this just highlights that. But there never is, because like I said, and we've been saying, most precincts are turning out 3 cars, 4 if you're lucky. So that means that there's no one in the station house, especially now you're on a midnight. It's 5 o'clock in the morning, right? I mean, I've done midnights. I know what 5 o'clock in the morning, that's not the busier hour of your night, right? Usually most of the crime happens between 12 to 3 in the morning. And then after that, you're like on the down spiral. Even cops, they start to get tired at that point. People are going on their meal, right? All that stuff is happening at that point. And this just shows you that at any time in New York City, even a quiet morning, 5 o'clock in the morning and during a weekend, you don't expect much to happen at that point, especially at the precinct. Oh, I'm going to have a nice, easy day. Going to get home, jump in my last few times I could get in my pool before I have to close it in 3 weeks. Anything could happen. And so this just shows like the diminished manpower where that is, because again, he was trying to get in the front door, the perpetrator. And we'll get to the press conference like now, but you're going to hear the chief say that the perpetrator was trying to get in the front door. And to me, it's like he should have been confronted by a station house. And that's the reason they have the door locked in the 7-3. And I'm just going to go back to like 2019. Actually, I think it was earlier than that. I think it was about 2018. I had to meet with the mayor's office at the 7-3 precinct. Right. And the idea behind why I had to meet there with the mayor's office, and I forget who else. But I met these people there. Oh, a detective from the police commissioner's office. So it was a police commissioner's office, and it was a representative from the mayor's office and the admin lieutenant at the time. So we go to the 7-3 precinct, and what they wanted to do at the 7-3 precinct is, and this is legit, there was a college fair or whatever, and this kid in college came up with this project where they wanted to do the people's precinct. So what they wanted to do is turn the 7-3 and the 7-5 and all of these precincts and give them glass storefronts, meaning that the front of these precincts, I mean, these buildings were built early on, right? I forget the 7-3. I think it was built later. I think the 7-3 is maybe like a 70s build. Just looking at the structure on the outside, could have been a little bit earlier than that. But what they wanted to do is make the precinct look more friendlier. And the reason they thought that if they made the precinct friendlier, more accessible to the public, they wanted to have a public sitting room where the public could come in, play video games, watch TV, do any type of transaction, say if I want to sell sneakers on Craigslist or Facebook. And they wanted this all to occur inside all of the busiest precincts in New York City, the understaffed, busiest precincts in New York City, just wide open. Yeah, you guys just come in, huge glass storefront, not bulletproof glass, by the way. So this glass could shatter. And on top of that, they wanted to make it the precinct a safe haven for unlicensed vendors to sit there and sell their product. This is a real thing that was happening, and most of it came to fruition. But I mean, obviously, reality and implementation are 2 different things. So while the front of some precincts changed, they added locks to the doors, because you can't sit there and say, I could just let anyone walk in the precinct and hang out and play video games and watch football and do their transactions here. But that was the idea behind that. And I'll never forget, I was there with a detective from the police commissioner's office, the admin lieutenant, and the person from the mayor's office. And the admin lieutenant says to me in front of them too, what is the idea behind this? I said, and the idea behind this is that if we make the front of your precinct prettier, crime will drop in your neighborhood. And he laughed, and I was like, not my idea, but that's what the idea is. That's what we're being told. That's what this is. Like, this is what the mayor's office wants. This is what the police commissioner wants. They think this is a great idea. Then it's up to us to advocate for what's actually safe and reasonable, And so after I left there, the detective from the police commissioner's office, like, hey, I just want to let you know, you can't be seeing anything, in front of people in the mayor's office. I was like, well, hey, I just want to let you know, maybe you should read the blueprint for the people's precinct, because that's what it says. It says that if we make the precinct look prettier, crime will go down. I was reiterating what's in the project. I'm not the one that wrote that. I don't think that this is a good idea, but I said you could have the commissioner feel free to call me. That's what it is. I don't know how else you want me to present it, but what it's being told that. I think it's a dumb idea, and I think that it's unsafe, and I think that it's not going to bring crime down, and I think that the implementation of this is going to be absolutely horrible if we look at it on its face. So I'm not gonna sugarcoat and lie about what this is. I'm not gonna tell the admin lieutenant anything else but what it says. This is what I read. This is what it says. If we make the front of precincts prettier, and we allow the precinct, and we allow people to come in and watch TV and play video games, and we allow unlicensed vendors all around the precinct to sell products, that crime will go down in these neighborhoods. And absolutely no rational person believes that. No rational person believes that, except for the mayor's office and the police commissioner's office. Those people, and then they want me to come up with selling a good idea to the rank and file police officers, and I absolutely would never do that. And I would absolutely never go along without putting my complaints and what I think needs to happen. And so I'm happy to hear that the 7-3 actually has a lock on the door. Because think about if that was the implementation of that, we'd be talking about a dead cop right now. Yeah, just come in, hang out in our room, and you could play video games, and you could do whatever you want in there. You can come in anytime. It's your building. It's the people's precinct.
You know what's funny about that? I'm glad you brought that up, John, because in a lot of ways, the new 116 precinct, like I went in there, and one of the things I noticed is that now the community council meets in there, and I thought it was very interesting, the layout of it, because I'm not necessarily opposed to that being in the precinct, but I just think the design of it is just off, because if you're having civilians walk past the cells and areas where cops are bringing in perps off the street, I don't think that's a good idea, but yeah, it's still designed that way. I would have thought that if they're going to do that, it would have its own entrance, or it would have been adjacent to the precinct and not necessarily inside of the precinct. Like you could walk, you'd have to pass through the precinct. But yet it is. And I see they have tons of events involving the public and kids inside the precinct. And I'm like, I just don't understand why the city keeps trying to turn precincts into community centers, This is like to me, it's a little misguided, because the precincts have things that you don't want to expose the public to. And if a situation goes sideways there, you don't want the public you don't want that guy who's walking to hear the monthly community meeting to get involved in that, but yet we're seeing it happen, and I find not hearing this from you now, I find the design of it very, like, looking at the way the layout and everything, very interesting. I don't think we see this outside in other departments outside of New York City too. Most of them, you walk into them and everything is behind a first your contact is behind a bulletproof glass partition, and you have to go through multiple doorways in order to actually enter the building itself. So I don't understand this myself.
So I was directly involved in. I came in the late stages of when they redid the Times Square building. So the little building, the little hub that's on Times Square on 43rd, 42nd, and 7th, I believe, right there. So that little Times Square building, it's famous, it's iconic building. So they redid that. So I came in on the late stages of that. So I'm sitting in a meeting, and they're talking about how, and there's a lot of big wigs in there and the representatives from the mayor's office and everybody else. And they're talking about how the building is made of bulletproof glass, the walls, right? And they're able to stop like very large rounds, right? Like they're like very high capability. Times Square, for those of you that don't know, is the #1 terrorist target in the world. It's not number 2. It's not number 3. It's not anywhere down the list. It's #1. There's been magazines, there's been flyers, there's been everything about taking that down or committing an act of terror. Through intelligence that our military has received, and through the intelligence the NYPD has received from our intelligence bureau and our partners across the world, Times Square is the number one terrorist target. And so the building's being built with bulletproof glass, high capability, high impact round, right? So it was built like that. And in the meeting, I was flabbergasted to hear that, there's no locks on the doors, though. So there's these huge, I don't even know how much money they spent on the door. I don't know, maybe it was like $30,000 for each side of the door. And I'm like, wait. I'm like, and mind you, I'm just a sergeant, but I'm like, I can't sit through this. And I'm like, I'm not listening to that. I was like, so there's no locks on the door, but we have bulletproof glass around the building. Could somebody explain that to me? And high impact resistant glass around the building. Could somebody explain that to me? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, sitting there and telling me that we're community friendly. We're a community friendly building. And also telling me that you have impact resistant glass, glass that will withstand shakes and bullets and everything else are surrounding the building, but the front door is wide open. Doesn't make sense to me at all. Could somebody explain this to me? And they're like, well, we want to make the precincts more friendly. The idea is to make the precincts more community friendly. I was like, bulletproof glass and community friendly don't go together. They just don't. I was like, listen, I don't want to offend anybody in here. I know I'm kind of speaking out of turn here, but we need to put locks on the door. We need to put a lock on the door. And a sergeant had went back at me in that meeting and said, well, it's the responsibility of the person sitting at the desk. And I'm like, I was like, I've passed there numerous times in my career, and I've went there off duty and on duty. And the majority of times that I'm there, there's one person sitting at that desk. There's one person in the heart of Times Square sitting there by themselves. I was like, I got an idea. I said, why don't we take the locks off and you sit there by yourself, and then let me know how you feel. And let anybody just walk in and see what happens, and let me know how you feel. And let me know. I said, and then when you come back to me in 2 hours and say, yeah, we need to put locks on this door, maybe we'll put locks on the door. Anyway, long story short, I fought tooth and nail over it. There was a lock put on the door. Thankfully, thank God, with a button where the desk could hit the button, open the door, let people in. Because I do agree, it is a public facility. The public, we're there to serve the public. That doesn't mean that our safety should be jeopardized as a result of it, especially when you're sitting there by yourself in the middle of what do they call it? The window of the world, right? The crossroads of the world. Like, you're sitting there by yourself. Like, yeah, there are cops outside, but at any moment in time, they might not know what's happening in that building. And so, and the whole design behind that building was also ridiculous as well. And, eventually the lock got put on the door. And then when the riots kicked off in 2020, I remember just sitting there and going, thank God I ostracized myself. And I was willing to get thrown out of what I was doing at the time, because if they didn't have the lock on the door, they would have had a big problem. That cop would have had a big problem, again, everything that we're being told by these progressives is honestly, it's anti-public safety, it's anti-police, and they're painting it as the opposite. They're painting it as, no, we want to be one with the community, and we care about our police, and we want everything to be good. And it's not the reality of it. The reality of it is, listen, as much as they say we want guardians, not warriors, the reality is you want a warrior that likes to guard him. You want someone that doesn't want to go to war. You want someone to be a cop that is fully prepared, fully trained to go to war, but he doesn't want to. And he'll avoid it. But if it comes, you want that person ready, right? You want the gardener that's actually a warrior. No, I like to plant gardens. I like to say hi to the kids. But, guess what? If the devil comes knocking today, I'm also ready to go, And so, it's really bad. It's very dangerous. And I'm just happy to hear that the 7-3 has locks on the front door, and every command should have a lock on the front door, and people should be identified, and there should be station house security at not only the police precincts, but every police facility throughout the city. And unfortunately, there's lots of them. There's a lot of them. And I don't think that the manpower is there to do that. And so, and I mean, and even just look at this press conference. Where's the mayor? Where's the police commissioner? Where's the deputy mayor of public safety? Where's the chief of department? All we get at this press conference is we get the chief of patrol, we get the CO of the command, and we get the executive officer of the Firearms Investigations Division, FID. That's all that's here. And I find it very eyebrow raising that nobody else came to this. And I think the reason is because they don't want to hype it up. Here you go, police involved shooting. They're just trying to make it a police involved shooting, but it's a whole lot more than that. It's a domestic terrorism incident that occurred at the 73rd Precinct that morning. And there was someone that walked into a police precinct with a knife that felt emboldened enough that they could walk in there, injure, maim, or kill a New York City police officer just for wearing the uniform.
Yeah. I agree with you, John. And again, like I said, Eric Adams' platform was public safety, and so I mentioned this would be the second domestic terrorism incident, but I mean, if you consider the incident in the 7-1, I mean the mass shooting in the 7-1, I mean it's really not a good look for them to have just another incident like this. And mind you, that incident in the 7-1 was across the street from the Transit District 32, I believe. Was it 31? Escapes me now, but it was a Transit District station. So I don't think they want this talked about. And even though the chief of patrol was there, he didn't say much. And you have to wonder if he was given instructions also to you just hurry up with his press conference and get it over with and then move on, so they can't ask you any serious questions about it.
Oh yeah, let's get on with the press conference. So here's the chief of patrol. He's going to break down what actually occurred in their terms. But clearly, I agree, and we'll get into it. This was already discussed how they were going to attempt to paint this incident.
Vasquez, commanding officer of Patrol Bureau, Brooklyn North, Deputy Inspector Odell Despot, commanding officer of the 73rd Precinct, and Deputy Inspector Paul Muggio, executive officer of the Force Investigation Division. I'm here to provide an update regarding an officer-involved shooting that occurred earlier this morning in the Brownsville section of Brooklyn. This incident demonstrates the dangerous situations that our officers confront every single day. The information I'm about to provide is preliminary and subject to change. At approximately 5:24 a.m., an individual entered the front of the 73rd Precinct building. He was in the front vestibule and then attempted to open a locked door. He did not verbally engage with anyone and left a few seconds later. He then walked around the block to the back of the precinct to an area which is clearly marked that is only for authorized NYPD personnel. At approximately 5:28 a.m., he entered the rear of the precinct and was immediately confronted in the vestibule by a police officer who was assigned to station house security. The officer told the individual that if he needed assistance, he needed to go to the front of the building. He then took out a large butcher knife and began attacking the officer. He slashed her in the face, but then she was able to fight him off. He then ran out of the back of the precinct, and an officer deployed a taser in an attempt to subdue the individual, but it was not effective in subduing him. Both the initial attack and taser deployment are captured on cameras from the inside and the outside of the precinct. Several officers engaged in a foot pursuit and followed him for several blocks. They repeatedly instructed him to drop the knife, but he did not comply. Once they reached Saratoga Avenue between Eastern Parkway and Park Place, he lunged at an officer with the knife extended towards that officer. Several officers discharged their firearms, and the male was struck numerous times. A large butcher knife, approximately 14 inches long, was recovered at the scene. This incident is all shown on body-worn camera footage and footage from the area. Our officer, who was slashed and taken to a local hospital, where thankfully she is recovering with good spirits. The individual was taken to Brookdale Hospital, where he was pronounced deceased. This incident is being investigated by our Force Investigation Division. This incident certainly could have turned out very differently. An individual walked into a known NYPD building with a large knife and attacked one of our officers. Every day our officers put on these uniforms. They encounter dangerous situations out in the street. But it's another kind of danger when someone comes directly into a precinct armed with a knife and attacks our officers. This is the risk that every member of the NYPD faces every single day to keep the city safe. I will now take a few questions.
So you heard a lot there. I mean, if you guys were paying attention to what he said. So like again, thankfully the guy tried to enter the locked door. He couldn't. It was locked. He goes around the back. Immediately he's confronted by an officer who was unprepared. She tells him he has to leave, and he takes out a knife and slashes her face. I didn't see the video. I don't know what happened, but I could guarantee that the tactics deployed were going to be absolutely horrendous, because he should have been expired in the back parking lot at that point in the 7-3. So I can't judge it. I can't say anything about that. But then he goes on to say then he's confronted after the slashing. He's confronted by other officers while still having the knife. And what does he say? The officers deployed a taser. Why are we taking tasers to a knife fight? I mean, we've went over this time and time again. I don't care what the data says. The data is manipulated. It fails more often than it's actually successful. It's not a less than lethal tool. It could also be lethal, but yet it's ineffective. You're putting your life in danger when someone's coming at you with a knife and you're deploying a taser. Now, if he's walking away from you in the back and you shoot him in the back with a taser, I got no issue with that. If he's confronting you with a knife and you're shooting him with a taser, you're a moron. And if you are doing that, you should also be ready to draw your firearm at a moment's notice. That's why you should be drawing the taser with your non-dominant hand, and you keep your dominant hand free, and firing the taser with your non-dominant hand, so that if the taser does in fact fail, like it often does, you have the ability to draw down on your firearm and fire, right? And so, we've done training after training in our time where actually if somebody's within 20 feet of you, it doesn't even matter if you draw your firearm or have your firearm drawn. More than likely, even if you deploy your firearm, if that person's intent on stabbing you, you're getting stabbed. You're not going to be able to stop them within 20 feet. Now, I don't know that you're deploying a taser in less than 20 and greater than 20 feet. You're going to be within that 20-foot range to deploy that taser. So you're breaking your zone of safety by doing that. What are your thoughts? Obviously, we're Monday morning quarterbacking without even seeing the video. But I mean, do you disagree with me? Do you think that when we get those videos, if we ever get those videos, that there'll be tactical failure after tactical failure?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you something else, John. Now, it's been a while since I was in the 7-3, but when I was there, Madry was there, and either Madry was actually no, I think it was just after he had left. But the 7-3 had a fascinating setup where in the CO's office, he had like a mini command center there with like multiple monitors, and they said they had some sort of setup where they're able to like monitor. That was pretty unique to the 7-3, where they're able to monitor a lot of what's happening in the precinct in real time. Like because I've never, the 7-7, we never had that, the CO's office never had
all the commands now are up to date with cameras and in the back and in the front. At that time that you're speaking about, that was relatively new. When we were cops, you had those old CCTV monitors. Now it's completely different.
Yeah. But it's not just that. It's not just a CO with computers. He had like 2 cops in there who are sitting at these desks with like multiple screens. So the point I'm trying to get to is that, like, with all the cameras that we've added to station houses, think of it. This guy was able to walk through the back. We have multiple cameras on station houses now, right? And even a desk, it has a view of these cameras. So he was able to walk through that. Nobody thought, hey, look, we got somebody in the parking lot, And this goes back to the fact that precincts are so short-handed that, the desk. I'm not gonna put any blame on the desk, because we know that desk sergeant is one of those guys that he's doing. He's one of the busiest guys in the precinct, because all the crap he has to deal with on that desk. Okay, but I'm pointing out how even with all these measures, it don't make a difference if there's nobody there to look at it. If there's no cop there to monitor it. And that this guy already went through multiple security failures that led to that point. The fact that he got to the back, he actually entered the precinct through the back door. And the thing about it, in the mid-teens, the precincts, we had those keypads. Those back doors became magnetically locked. And the thing is, how many of those doors are broken now is what I'm curious about. Because I'm willing to bet that there's a few of those doors that they may have added a magnetic lock and a keypad to it, but they're now broken, and the upkeep isn't there. So my point is that the department has added a couple of these piecemeal measures, but it doesn't make a difference if there's nobody there to monitor it. And I agree with you 100% that if we were to watch that video, we would see all these failures, including the tactical failures. And something else to point out is, you already know this EDP went into the station house with a knife. Okay, so why do you have your taser out? This guy already attacked a cop in a precinct. You already know where his mindset is at. Okay, it's the training these guys get, and it's that fear of getting in trouble. I believe that's like, it's the Floyd effect, or I believe before that we used to call it the Ferguson effect, But I think it's 100% affecting these young guys, and I can't understand why you'd ever bring a taser to a knife fight. If a perp pulls out a knife and tries to attack a cop, you already know what in all likelihood he's going to try to do to you. So that's the taser time is done.
No, yeah, and RH is like going, saying, "Oh, it's a public building. You guys want the whole public shut out." No, it's not that. We're just telling the reality of what it is. Like, you're an understaffed precinct. Like, you should sit in a meeting in one police plaza when people are coming up with policy, because it's like, any idea, it could be the dumbest idea in the world. All you hear is, "Yeah, great idea, chief. Give it to the desk officer. Give it to the desk officer." And if you ever knew the duties of a desk officer in an NYPD precinct, desk officer is traditionally a sergeant or a lieutenant. They sit at the big front desk. You could never possibly do every job that they have and everything that they're assigned for. They're basically in charge of the entire precinct, everything that's happening in and out, and expected to know everything that's happening in every crevice at all times, while also being in charge of all command operations, every single thing that's happening. It's an absolutely impossible task. Now try doing that job with just you and one other cop sitting there. It's impossible. Now try to do that and handle an influx of anyone just being able to walk in and out of your precinct. No way that you could keep the cop safe. No way that you could keep the public safe. No way that you could keep the prisoner safe. And I think that's what people don't understand, right? Like, there's people that come to the precinct because they're victims of crime. If they're afraid to come to the precinct because the precinct's a dangerous place, they're not going to come to the precinct to report crime. What we should be doing is when a complainant comes there to take a report, instead of taking a report in a lobby in front of everyone, that complainant should be taken to a side room to speak in privately so that their privacy is adhered to, and they meet with cops in private and we take a report. But the customer service fails, and we fail miserably because we don't have cops to provide any customer service. And the cops, even if they're well-intentioned, they're going to be overwhelmed. And what happens when you're overwhelmed in any of your jobs? You're going to break down. You're going to break down, and you're not going to be able to provide good customer service. You're going to come off with an attitude. You're going to provide diminished service, and you're going to be rushed. And so that's what we're saying here, RH. And you know, like how Marlon was describing the new 116. This isn't like a restaurant. A police precinct isn't a restaurant. You're not just going to walk in and be like, oh, we should see how the chef is making the food, new style. Like, no, that's not it. That's not a police precinct. We're dealing with life and death, dangerous situations. We're dealing with people that are coming there to report horrific things. We arrest people, horrific people. But am I saying that we should be doing this under the cloak of secrecy? Absolutely not. I said it before. I believe in transparency. The cameras, the whole precinct's camered up. The cells are camered up. And anyone should be able to FOIA and get any of that information at any time. But we have to, as humans, have a common sense solution to what's safe and what's not. Keeping a precinct wide open with a desk officer and a cop sitting there by themselves and letting anyone just walk in at any time, it's not a safe, sensible solution. And FYI, if you showed up to get a report taken at that time, you're not getting a report taken, obviously, right? Because now they just shot somebody. And you were just completely endangered. You probably almost got stabbed, and you're never getting that report taken anyway. You're going to have to come back the next day anyway. So again, you know, there has to be measurements and things that make sense. It can't just be, yeah, you could come in here and put unlicensed vendors all over and we'll leave you alone, and come into our community room at any time you wish and play PlayStation. Sorry. It's just not reality.
Yeah. Yeah, RH. The thing is, you can't have. It's a police station. It's not a community center. You know, we should have community centers, you know, by themselves. There are plenty of areas in the city that we could use for that instead of a police station. You don't want to put the public. You don't want to put them on the risk of getting injured themselves in a police station. You know. I just don't think it's a well thought out idea, you know. But I see Sleepy Joe has donated to the podcast. Thank you, Sleepy Joe. It's a great comment. He says that that is not acceptable. Going forward, there needs to be a message sent that if you attack a police officer, we're gonna court case it across the sea. Yeah, you know, I said online that you're going to hear empty platitudes from the unions, and here you go. You know, you see empty. We keep going through this cycle. You know, empty platitudes like a month where the department actually, you know, pretends to care about station house security, and then we're going to go back to business as usual, because we went back to business as usual after 2020, and 2020 that guy could have killed cops in that precinct. You know. And if you recall, back in 2011, there was an attack in Detroit. Now, their station house setup was very similar to a lot of ours, where there was no partition separating the public from the officers, and it was very easy to gain access to the unauthorized areas. And in that attack in Detroit, the perp jumped over the barrier. You know, that little fence that we have in a lot of the precincts. He hopped over the barrier and then started blasting at the cops inside the station house. You know, I believe 4 cops ended up getting shot. But the thing is, even after these incidents, the job, you know, once that incident leaves the news cycle, the job forgets all about it, instead of taking permanent measures to prevent some tragedy, like that from ever happening in the NYPD. And that's what we're pointing out today, that you know, these measures are piecemeal, and we had multiple areas of failure here, and the job needs permanent measures to prevent this from happening. And when you introduce a community, when you try and fit a community, when you try and fit the rectangle into this rectangle of a community center into the circle of a police station house, it just doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't work because God forbid you have an incident like this. Not only will the officers get hurt, but you have the public, which may become a casualty, just by way of the setup of these precincts. So what we're saying is we need permanent measures here instead of piecemeal approaches that don't solve the issue.
Yeah, I mean, and then look at this knife, dude. Are you really pulling your taser out? I'm not pulling my taser out. I'm sorry. I'm pulling my gun out. You charged me with that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Not my fault. I'm not trying to get killed tonight. And he already had slashed a police officer. Like, look at this knife. I mean, nobody should be pulling. I don't know what's happening in the academy. I think this needs to be looked at. I know they just put Chris Morello in charge of the police academy. He should be looking at that. And whatever's happening, I mean, I believe these guys are being trained to pull that taser out. That's what it sounds like to me, because it's over and over and over again. And Hudmaya is like, he's bringing up a point here. He says, I'm not buzzing anyone into the precinct. What's the criteria to get buzzed in? Clean clothes, skin color, gender? No. So you're not understanding what we're saying here. So anybody could get a police report. The police precinct is accessible to anybody. However, we need access control, safety protocols. Like I just told you, the desk officer has an impossible job. You know what? When you walk into a precinct, you know what the desk officer you see? On the phone, picking up 3 phone calls. The guy doesn't even know what's happening, right? And he's trying to know what's happening. He's trying to see what happened. He's trying to check on the prisoners, and he's getting up and he's checking on the prisoners, and he's seeing what's going on. He's making sure no one, the cops snuck in the back door, and all the cops are doing what they got to do, and that, all the prisoners are doing what they got to do, and nobody's dead, and all this other stuff, right? And nobody's sneaking in the back door. So what we're talking about is access control, right? Oh, there's somebody here. All right, buzz him in, see what he wants. Now we're ready, right? Because we see you coming in. I'm not sitting there like this, and next thing I know, there's a guy on top of me with a knife. And so that's what we're saying. We're saying access control. We're not saying, oh, I don't like this guy. Oh, this guy looks like a bum. No, it's saying come into the precinct. It's a public service. It's a public good. Doesn't matter what you look like, what your skin color is, who you sleep with, what you believe you are, what you believe in, what your religion is there. You should be met with customer service. But we should also have a clear plan for how to deal with that. Could we how many complainants could we deal with at once? How long should it take to deal with a complainant? Do we have the proper staff to deal with complainants? And what we're seeing is they don't have the proper staff to handle 911 jobs. So how are they dealing with complainants that show up at the precinct? And I'm not saying that shouldn't happen, but it's just the reality of it. We need access control. We need to be able to properly assess situations. It's not, we're not in the retail business. We're not, we are in the customer service business though. Absolutely. You show up at a precinct, you should be met with some form of customer service. But with a diminished, demoralized department, the customer service you receive will be in the trash. And it is in the trash because they don't have the ability to do what you want to do. I mean, just you go to CVS today and everything's behind like a glass thing. Well, not in my CVS. In my CVS where I live now, I just get whatever I want. Pack of razor blades, I go up to the counter, I pay for it. No big deal. Or I even go to the swipe thing where there's no security guard there, and I just swipe it through myself, and I pay for it, and I leave. In New York, I can't even get a bottle of water. I got to ring the bell. Even the one right by One Police Plaza. You ever go in there and try to get something? There's 2 people working. You have to ring a bell to get absolutely anything you want, including candy. And then you're waiting 20 minutes for them to come and unlock the thing. Then you have to go try to get someone to pay for it. And it's like, imagine that, like, we can't even manage CVS anymore. CVS is a horrific experience where to the point where last time I was in there, I think it was a few months ago. Last time I was in there, I walked out. I was like, forget about it. I don't even remember what I wanted. It was like something stupid. And I think I wanted like gum or something. And I was like, screw this. I'm not waiting for this. I just left. And you're going to and so what's happening across New York City, and especially in the New York City Police Department, is you're being met with that same type of customer service, that same type of unfriendly environment, because there's no standard, and there's no access control, and you don't have enough people to even deal with the flow of complainants that are walking in, never mind what's actually happening out there in the miles that you're serving in that precinct. So it really comes down to manpower. It comes down to training, and it comes down to the leadership of this city not really setting a clear mission forth for their workers.
That last point is very true, John. You know, I mentioned that I was at 1PP last week, right? And so I had to go through security. And by the way, I noticed 1PP now looks like you're going through a prison. You know, that the front entrance they've added that turnstile, and I think that's the dumbest thing around. You know, I think that it just made the place look ugly. Okay, but anyway, I had to go through security, and I was trying to get to the trial room. And you know what I noticed? That, you know, the officers in the front, to their credit, when they initially told me that I'm not allowed in it, because again, I'm a civilian now. I have no ID for the NYPD, right? So no retired ID, right? So I tell them, listen, I'm trying to get to the trial room, and they told me no, I can't access it. It's not for the public. So I tell them that's not true. I've been told I can. If you can do me a favor, just call a supervisor or somebody and inquire about it. And to their credit, they did, but they didn't initially know that the public are allowed to go to the trial room. So my question is, think of it for a second, right? These officers should all know which areas the public can and can't access, okay? And where is their supervisors? Where's the leadership giving them clear protocols about where the public can and cannot access? I'm a little dumbfounded that you can have a security post and there aren't clear guidelines for these guys, and that they have to actually refer to calling a supervisor in order to find out. And that call took a couple minutes too. So I kind of wonder if the supervisor themselves actually knew. Yeah. And so this goes back to John's point about leadership, and I don't think the job in general prioritizes the security of NYPD facilities themselves. I think this is an afterthought.
Well, I mean, you know, and I've said it before, right? I'm like, what's the sense of having this whole headquarters security unit? I mean, the headquarters security, that's a hard building to secure, right? In the middle of Manhattan, right? There's you know, the whole thing, it's open on basically all four sides. You could access that building, right? It's a highly secured facility, or at least it should be. What's the point of having a security team, sending them out to details and flying people in that don't know how to secure that building and don't know the protocol? So like, I don't blame the cops that were placed there. They were placed there with no clear and proper instruction, and they don't know. And I've, you know, when you're a police officer, you're not going to know everything, but if you're securing a facility, you should know the ins and outs of that facility that day, right? Like, oh yeah, no, civilians are allowed in the trial room. Civilians are allowed here. They're not allowed here. I mean, that's like the basic, what are you doing other than that? You know, I don't blame them for leading on the side of caution. You know what I mean? I don't blame them at all. That's what I would do if I wasn't given proper instruction. I would lead on the, no, you're not allowed, you know, and get penalized for it later on, because I didn't know that. So, you know, kudos to them for getting to their bosses, the people that run headquarters security unit, who are more familiar with who's allowed in and who isn't, and for what, and how they're allowed in, and what those protocols are. But again, it just shows that there's no clear mission being given. And I'm sure the same is true when it comes to policing, when it comes to policing the streets, as well as when it comes to dealing with complainants inside the station house. Here's a little clip from CBS 2 reporting on it from yesterday.
We are told this has been confirmed as a police-involved shooting, and we are awaiting an update with more details with a press conference that's going to be taking place here on scene. Right now, I want to show you what it's looking like. We're right here at the corner of Saratoga Ave and Park Place, and you can see that officers are out here, detectives are out here. There are numerous evidence markers on the street, as you can see. We counted more than 10 evidence markers that are out here. Now, police telling us at this hour, though, that around 6:30 a.m. this morning, there was a male. Officers came across a disorderly man. This was not a 911 call. When they came across this man, police say that they tried to de-escalate the situation. It led to one officer being slashed in the head with a knife. Police confirming that knife was recovered here on the scene. Two officers then discharged their guns, striking the male. Police say it's unknown right now exactly where the man was struck or how many times he was struck. Police say EMS took that man to the hospital. There's no update on his condition. Also, that man has not been identified at this hour. Police say multiple officers were taken to nearby hospital. No exact information on their injuries. Again, police confirming that.
So I messed up there. I said that she was slashed in the face. She was actually slashed in the head. So that means that he attempted to stab her in the head. So
yeah. They said that she blocked it. So kudos to her for her tactics and preventing him from sending her to the hospital. We're talking like with a serious injury. But yeah, not only is deploying a taser to a guy with a knife inappropriate, but how many videos have we seen where guys are fighting with perps and you have the taser on you and you're not using it then? So, I just don't understand it. We have these tools now and we're using it inappropriately at the wrong time.
No, I stabbed in the head. Basically, it was basically attempt. It's honestly it's attempted murder. Like the guy's attacking you with that huge butcher knife towards your head. I mean, come on. Yeah. If that's not domestic terrorism, I don't know what is. And what was her crime? What was the reason? She wasn't taking enforcement. Her crime was that she was wearing the uniform. Why was he going to that precinct? I mean, clearly the intent is shown through his actions. He was going there to injure, maim, or kill a New York City police officer. Let's hear what the PBA president had to say.
Yeah. And the environment that our police officers are under is what this is about. Why would this individual come to a station house and target a New York City police officer? And that's what happened here. That's the question that everybody has to ask. Why did he come here? And why did he go after this police officer who was doing her job? She was working the floor here on the midnights. While most people were sleeping, she was out there performing incredible work. And that's what police officers do on a daily basis. So this was terrific work that she did. Yeah. And the environment that our police officers.
I mean, like, what do you think about it? I mean, this is to me, I'm just so sick of them. Like, I really like that. It's just disgusting to listen to. Like, because this is how they make their money. Like, they're perfectly fine with what happened. They don't care. They're not looking for solutions to fix this. They're not looking to fix the problems. They don't care. Oh, she did a great job, or she was a hero. They could care less. They're coming out there. They don't give a shit. These guys don't care. Like, what do you think about Therese Henry? What he's got to say here?
Yeah, it's empty platitudes. I said what the union should just do is just record him. Record him, and then depending on what incident it is, you just play that recording because it's always the same thing, just empty words and no actual plan. And the problem for the job is that instead of solving these issues when they happen, you kick the can down the road and the problem becomes even bigger down the road. And for instance, right, when the city was loaded with cash, one of the priorities should have been completely improving the infrastructure of these precincts and just remodeling all of them and updating the security. Now that the city is in a budget gap, that's unlikely to happen because we don't have the money. and it's what I'm saying, that you kick the can down the road, the problem becomes even bigger. And that's why I'm a fan of, like, it annoys me, like, hearing these problems over and over again. I'm a fan of, if it happens, you solve the problem then. Otherwise, you're going to have a big issue down the road. And, when Pat comes up and he repeats the same talking points he's done many times over and over again without proposing a solution, what he and the job is doing is kicking the can down the road. So it'll be somebody else's problem in the future, and then it becomes an even bigger problem by then.
What do you think about the fact that at the press conference they wouldn't identify the suspect? They wouldn't identify his name. They wouldn't identify a demographic. I could just take from that he's not a male white suspect, because that, to me, I see a clear, every time there's a press conference, if it happens to be a male white, a Republican, or a Christian, they have no problem getting those details. They actually rush to get those details out there immediately, or a Trump supporter. And then every time it's anything but that, if it's a Muslim male, if it's a black male, they don't want to put that. They don't put the information out there on the news. We saw a picture of the knife, but we have no identification of the suspect. We have no description of the suspect, and I believe that's also intentional. I believe it's as intentional as when I look at a mugshot of a black male who's a clearly black male, and they have him listed as a white male. And it's more misrepresentation of numbers to skew crime numbers and crime data.
Yeah. I agree. That's something we need to keep an eye out on. I wonder what other details are being hidden from us, and I think they're going to come out, but it's going to come out when this has gone past the news cycle and everyone forgets. And certainly, I bet if they're given a chance, they're going to hold it until past November, and we'll never fully hear it. Hear the details of what's going on. Yeah, Tabitha mentions it in the chat. She says he might be an illegal immigrant. Yeah, Tabitha, that's a very good point. Very good point. And again, that's something that Eric Adams would not want to become public right now, considering how lenient, like, all he's done to promote New York City as the as a sanctuary city and as the place for illegals to come to get free stuff.
No, yeah, 100%. I mean, that's what this is all about. It's an election year, right? The misrepresentation of the crime numbers, the historic lows in shootings. And again, I can't say it enough. Like, I've been now watching Chicago's mayor, LA's mayor, Baltimore's mayor, DC's mayor, and they're blatantly lying. I mean, it's blatantly a script. They're talking perception versus reality. Some of the police unions are much better than those in New York City, because they're literally, I guess there's no election, because they're literally using those terms, the mayors. It's perception versus reality. We're at historic lows. Brandon Johnson's touting how many guns. We took 24,000 guns off the street. Eric Adams saying we took 20,000. And I mean, it's clearly a scripted plan by Democrat mayors in blue cities. It's like, this is the narrative we're going to push, and this is exactly how we're going to do it, because it's anything but the truth. I saw a post yesterday where Eric Adams was bashing Cuomo and Mondani and saying that they can't keep women safe on the trains, and so that's why we need to elect him. We need to elect Eric Adams to keep women safe on the trains. And then, God's funny, because he likes to always, I think every time he puts out one of these statements, there's something that debunks him almost immediately. So here's this lady on New York City subways.
I don't even know what to say at this point. I had to get off the train, past my stop, because there was a guy who was following me from car to car. And when I tried to get off at my stop, which was pitch dark, he held it open to see if I was going to get off. So I had to get off the stop after. And then when I got off the stop after, I hopped on the next train that was going the other direction. And I got on an express train. And I was back on the other side of the track. Hold on. New York City is not safe. It's not safe for women. Okay? I am so sick and tired of having to look over my shoulder 24/7, not just at night, during the day, at all hours. I'm sick and tired of it. I don't even know what to say at this point.
I mean, clearly debunking what Adams is saying here, right? Like, he's saying that subway crime's down. He's saying that women are safe. And again, I'm going to say it. Zohran Mamdani is not the mayor of New York City. Andrew Cuomo is not the mayor of New York City. Eric Adams is the mayor of New York City, and he's failed. He doesn't ride the train unless he's with a huge security detail. The only, you know what? Zohran Mamdani doesn't ride the train unless he's with a huge security detail. Andrew Cuomo doesn't ride the train, period. The only guy that's out there that rides the train every day without a security detail, with a huge identifier on his head, a huge red beret on his head, is Curtis Lewa. He's the only guy that knows what's going on down there and actually cares about subway safety, because he's the only guy that actually rides it. Like, what do you think about what this girl's saying here versus what Eric Adams is putting out?
Yeah. Well, first to this lady, I said it online, but how is that voting progressive working out for her? Because I'm sure she probably. I'm very curious what she voted for, but I'm pretty sure it was for more progressivism. But yeah, this is happening a lot, and I have a lot of family members that tell me that they don't want to take the subway anymore because of fear of incidents just like this, So I think in all these. We've yet to hear a real solution for this from Eric Adams himself, and I don't think they have one. And again, as I said before, confronting the real problems means confronting that progressivism, and instead they'd rather gaslight us and tell us that the numbers are down when you can clearly see that things aren't the case in the subway. And as I said before, as things get worse, we're going to see even more. We might see even more EDPs. Trump. I mentioned this a couple of times already. Trump has already said he's going to pull SNAP benefits, and they're looking to make cuts to like the HUD budget. And I believe, again, when things like this happen, the sense of hopelessness and mixed in with the problem we have with emotionally disturbed people, you're gonna see a lot of people who are angry, and they're gonna take out that anger and frustration on not only cops, but we're seeing women like this in the subway. These EDPs are gonna pick a target, and unfortunately, it's gonna be people like this in the subway. So,
yeah. And Craig B says, I always said that police work is not a customer service orientated business. I totally disagree with you. I mean, everything that we're doing is for the public good. Literally everything. Does that mean that every police officer is suited to deal with the public? No. There are some guys that, you're good at taking doors down. You're good at going out and arresting perps. Those are your enforcement units. Those are not customer service oriented. When you're talking about patrol, when you're talking about admin staff in the precinct, it's customer service all day long. Patrol is a mix of enforcement and customer service. Again, how do you want to be treated when you call a police officer? You want to be treated like you're an idiot? So I totally disagree. I think customer service and police work are hand in hand. It's the foundation of policing. And again, I'm not saying for warrants guys and narco guys, no, you do what the hell you got to do. ESU, SWAT, no, you're not customer service oriented when you're doing your job. You're when you're a cop on patrol and you're dealing with an EDP, you're not really doing customer service at that point anymore. But when you're responding to someone who just got their house broken into, or their wife just died in front of them, or their child's dead, we're in the customer service business. We're in a really bad portion of the customer service business. We're there. I mean, we're paid for by the public as a public good. But that doesn't mean, that we're pushovers or anything like that. But it does mean that, we do have a responsibility to answer these 911 calls, answer community complaints. And why are we ultimately going out and solving criminal patterns and locking people up? We're doing it for the community. Maybe there's a better word for it. I just don't know of one right off. I just don't know of one. And, that LOS guy or that lost guy says 7-3 is definitely not understaffed in Brownsville. I'm going to totally disagree. I'm going to say the numbers are down from where they were 5 years ago. I'm going to say if you look at the rosters haven't gotten bigger. They've gotten smaller in every precinct. Now, does the 7-3 have a lot more cops than they do in the 1-2-3? Absolutely. But that was always the case also, right? It's more heavily staffed than smaller precincts throughout the city. But there's going to be a diminishment of all uniformed personnel. And they've done that recently where they've redone all the rosters of precincts and actually lowered the headcount of all people in the precinct. There's precincts right now that have under 100 uniformed members of the service. I mean, you can't operate I don't give me the slowest precinct. You can't operate a precinct like that. You just can't, especially if you have cells or, it is accessible to the public. It's impossible to operate something like that.
Yeah, you absolutely are customer service as a cop. You're customer service with a firearm. Okay. How many times have you been on a foot post and then somebody comes up and asks you some questions about city government that you have absolutely no idea about, and they expect you to have the answer, it's just how it is. People expect the police department to have all these answers about city government or where somebody should, where to direct someone for city services, and you're that guy. Unfortunately, it is what it is. So since in the academy, I think it was the academy, I heard a statement that you're customer service with a firearm, but yeah, it just rings true when there are many times I'm in Manhattan and people are coming up and asking me for directions to some other far off part of the city, and I have no idea. But you got to fake it, because unfortunately, and these are tourists, unfortunately, people just see that uniform and they expect, they're not going to the sanitation worker or to the fire department for that info, because there's just some expectation that the police department has to know everything, and has to have the answers. And it's not just us saying that. Okay, the city itself is saying it too, because look at the Q teams. The Q teams are basically the city trying to fit 311 jobs, everything 311. Okay, and everything's every quality of life service under the police department. They're asking the police department to direct, where garbage pickup needs to be done, where let's say you have a lot of garbage in a lot. The police department needs to go clean that up. The police department needs to tow derelict vehicles off the street. It's not just me saying that the police department is customer service with a firearm. It's the city themselves. It's just that we're so good at it that unfortunately the city tends to lean on us for everything. And again, just going back to the 116 and the community center in there. Community centers now, look, think of it. Community centers, they're trying to put under the police department too. So not only do you have to know everything about the city, but you're expected to be the community center too, and to host all these events for teenagers too. So I'm like, it just is what it is, you're customer service.
Yeah, let's talk about customer service a little bit. Let's get into that. Let's look at this. Let's see. So you and full disclaimer, the guy in this video is a complete douche, but he was just assaulted. So imagine you were just assaulted on the streets of New York. Your adrenaline's gonna be flowing. You're gonna be a little angry. You're probably not gonna be the best customer, but you approach two cops because you want to report that you were assaulted. Let's see. Is this customer service oriented profession? I think it is. And is this the customer service that New York City wants, deserves, and pays for? And should we be paying for this?
This is crazy. I'm over here reporting a crime that a crazy nigga just came up to me. I'm asking, do you need help? Are you in pain? I don't need help no more, mister. Get back in your fucking car and get the fuck out of here. What the fuck is you talking about? You got an attitude for no reason. You got an attitude for no reason, miss. You got an attitude. Can I get a supervisor? Can I get a supervisor, please? For what? Can I get a supervisor? Because I came to report an incident because a nigga came up to me as I was recording.
This is not our area.
What do you mean?
This is not our area.
It's not an area for what? What do you mean? It's not an area for what?
You have to call 911 to report that incident. We're just by.
What? I was walking down the block and she got assaulted right here, so I came up to the car to ask her and tell her about the report. Nothing to do with y'all. It has nothing to do with y'all? Get the fuck out of my face. That shit is crazy. You hear this? Yo, a guy just assaulted me. I came to the car to tell them, and they tell me it's not their problem. It's not their problem. Ain't that crazy to you? Get the fuck out of here. I just got assaulted, and I came to them to ask them for help, and they told me it's not their fucking problem. Because you came at me mad hostile. Yes, you did. How the fuck you didn't come at me hostile? You came at me hostile. I don't need your help. Get the fuck out of here. Fuck out of here. I don't need your help. You are 911, ain't you? Ain't you 911 though? Ain't you 911? Ain't you 911? Fuck. Shit is stupid, my nigga. I don't gotta keep it going nowhere. You keep it moving. I'll pay tax. I don't gotta go nowhere. 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 How about you go in the store, get your shit, and get the fuck out of here, my nigga? So y'all don't want to do your fucking job. The fuck? I got it all on video that I just got assaulted. Y'all don't want to do nothing about it.
I mean, listen, so the guy's a douche. I'll totally tell you that. A complete utter douche. But I mean, I've heard cops say this. I think I would never ever tell anyone that. You are 911. You're on duty, you're 911. Someone comes up to you, they call 911. You don't need to tell them to call 911. Like, what are your overall thoughts about all of this? I think that they did a horrible job. People online are blasting them. Every right-wing media personality saying, "Oh, they're a bunch of DEI hires and they should be fired." I don't think they should work together again for a while. I think that they should be put on a foot post. I think that they should be learning how to take reports from people in the station house for a little while. I think they should learn how to fix their mannerisms a little better. But I also blame a lot of this on their training. What do you mean this isn't your area? Why are you out of area? You're in New York City. Your patch says New York City. They don't know the difference between precincts. People don't know if you're Sector Adam or you're Sector Charlie. They don't care. Don't tell someone this isn't my sector. This isn't my precinct. You're out there. You put yourself out there. You went out there with your stupid blue car and your stupid blue uniform. You're out there. Someone came up to you, deal with it. You got caught. Right? Don't give someone an attitude, I don't care, and then expect them. And now the guy's videoing you, and you're still telling him, you're still doubling down. Call 911. Call 911. What? Yeah. But this is but again, I blame them. I think they should have been smarter. But this is like, I see this over and over again. I hear constantly from the community that, hey, I called 911 to report that my car was broken into, and they said there's nothing they could do. I was like, what do you mean they said there's nothing they could do? Oh, they couldn't take a report from me because, the DA's dropping the case. I'm like, what are you talking about? Doesn't mean they don't take the report. Oh, they couldn't do anything. They broke in my house. Oh, they couldn't do anything that they spray painted on my fence. They told me fill out a report online. It's like, what? Whatever happened to refer the complaint, not the complainant? The complainant is the person reporting the crime, meaning we're dealing customer service right now. We're taking a report for somebody. We're investigating a crime. Right? So, and then what do we do with that report if it's not for our precinct? We bring it to the precinct concerned. Hey, listen, I got this report. Or maybe you don't bring it there. You give them the heads up. You bring it back to your own precinct. Like, hey, I just want to let you know, Sarge, call the desk. I just want to let you know we just took a report in your command for a burglary. Do you want your guys to come out here and investigate it? We just took a report in your command for assault. Do you want your guys to come out here and investigate it? Or do you want us to do it? You don't tell the complainant this isn't your area. Horrible job. Horrible customer service.
Yeah. Terrible. Yeah, like I mentioned before that you're in Manhattan and a tourist comes up and asks you, "How do I get to so and so?" Now, are you going to tell them, "Hey, listen, I don't have the answers for that. Go ask the MTA guy downstairs." Yeah. No, you listen. Even if you don't know, you do your best to respond to their question and to be customer service. And in this case, listen, the guy may be an EDP. The guy may just want to run his mouth. We don't know the full extent of what's going on, but we do know that their response is just not right. You got to learn how to talk to people and to at least appear that you can do something for them even when you can't. Okay. And in this case, I can't see how they can't at least do a 61, which is a complaint report for this guy, you know. But yeah, it's a bad look for them. It's a terrible look. I don't care if you're off post or whatever. It is what it is. You got a complainant who comes up to you and asks you for service. You got to help them out. You're not. You see, this goes back to what I said also, John, earlier. How these guys are so afraid of getting in trouble that it like paralyzes them to do their actual job and to do it properly. Just take the report. Take the report from the guy that takes like 3 minutes. And then you put it over and then you continue with your day. Even if you can't do anything about it, you take the report and the guy will feel as though, okay, police did the best they can do for me here, and at least the police are working for me. Now instead, this guy is left anger, and more than likely he's going to take out that anger on the next cop too. So this just doesn't help anybody, and certainly doesn't help the image of the department.
No, yeah. I mean, Hoodman is saying, why are we talking about this? I mean, because if this is how you're treated when minor things happen, could you rely on this? Could you rely on this when major things happen? I don't think so. Right? You ever hear the old saying? It's like, it's the little things that matter. It's how you do the little things that, like everyone thinks everything's easy. And they're like, oh, I could do what you guys do. I could do all that stuff. I could do that. All right. I'm like, all right, so do it. Let me see you do one aspect of it. Let me see you put a thumbnail together. Let me see you title an episode. Let me see you do something. And then when they do it, there's completely no care to it. And it's like, oh, okay, well, no, you can't do what we do because you don't care enough. You don't care enough, and so that's I honestly think it's really big. I mean, I think it's not only is it are police the face of the NYPD, they're the face of the mayoral administration. They're the face of New York City. I mean, we've all done millions of details. Every detail I've ever been on, like Marlon's saying to you, people are coming up to you left and right. They don't know if you're a lieutenant, if you're a sergeant, if you're a detective. They don't care. They're coming to you for help, and it's your job. You should help them, regardless what your rank is, what your assignment is. Oh no, I'm just out here today driving the chief. Doesn't matter. Nobody cares. Take the damn report. Do your job. If you don't know what you're doing, you should really wonder why you have that lieutenant shield or that sergeant shield or that detective shield or that police officer shield. You should really wonder about that if you don't know how to help someone or how to get someone the help that they need or direct them to and I'm not saying direct them. Someone on here was saying how they were getting sent all over the city to file a report. Oh, go here. No, you should first police officer you encountered, regardless of where it occurred, unless it needed to be investigated, should be there. There's people that have came into the precinct to try to report a burglary or something broken out of their car, like a grand larceny. And I'm like, do me a favor, go back to your car, go back to your house, and I'm going to send a car there because we have to investigate and look around. Yeah, that's, am I sending them? I'm sending them to where it occurred. Yeah, absolutely, because we want to investigate that crime. And if it's not in my precinct, hey, call up the 122. Listen, I got a complaint in here. I'm sending them back. You send the car over to the house to investigate it. That's it. I'm helping them. You're helping them. I don't care. You're a cop. You're a lieutenant. And people are like, oh, it's toxic taking reports. It's always been toxic taking reports. It is, like I said, police work. The majority of your day is fighting with people internally in the NYPD. That's the majority of your day. I have no problem dealing with EDPs. I have no problem dealing with perps. I have no problem dealing. I have a big, huge problem when I have to deal with the internal sergeants, the lieutenants, the captains, the admin staff, the comstat. Everything's an issue. Everything's a problem when you have to deal with the squad, and nothing wants to be done, right? And you all need to work together, and yet nobody wants to work together. And so, but that's what you get paid to do, dude. That's what you get paid to do. So what? You should get paid. You should earn a salary. You should get a pension. And then when I call 911, we get no service. I don't think so. I think that this matters hugely. How you do the little things matter. We can't take a report for assault on the street. What about when you get shot? What about when you get robbed? What about when your kid's missing? How do you think these cops are going to handle that? I showed up to a missing one time. 2 cops there. I was busy as hell. I had a ton of things going on. I get there. I'm like, what's going on? Oh, they reported their son missing. I'm like, oh, did you do any social media checks to see where he might have been? No. Did you call any of his friends? No. Where do you think he is? Oh, I don't know. I'm like, wait. So you showed up to this job. The mother and father told you the guy's missing. And you called me and you want me to investigate the whole incident for you. Just report. I was like, what about the report? Did you start the report? No. I was like, all right, you two aren't working together anymore after this one. Like, that's it. You're going to learn how to be cops together. Your job is to investigate it. Tell me what it is, and I'll tell you whatever investigative steps you missed. Right? And in like 4 seconds of asking the parents question, I was able to identify where the child was, get on the phone with them, get them home. And we didn't even have to do a missing report. These 2 idiots sat there for an hour and did absolutely nothing. Imagine, God forbid, the kid was kidnapped or the kid needed help. You had 2 idiots just sitting there not doing their job. This matters. It matters big.
Yeah. I just think that's basic community relations right there. Even if they could be the baddest perp there, but when they call or they look for 911, look for help from 911, and you try your best to respond to them and to act like you can do something about it, even though, like I said, even though you can't, you still got to put some effort into it, right? But even though the baddest perps that will respect you, okay, because you're responsive to them rather than just blowing them off and acting like they don't matter. And that's something else. When you treat people like they all matter, then they gain that respect for you. And to that point, I said this last week when I was in Manhattan. I look at cops and I see so many of them look unhappy, and so many of them either look unhappy or they look kind of like detached from it. And what I think is happening right now is not only is there nihilism in society with young people feeling hopeless, but I think the NYPD as an organization itself, it has organizational nihilism, where these young guys don't feel they matter. They feel like they're a number. They're treated like a number by the administration. And because they're treated like a number, they put less effort into their job. They no longer, they're no longer compelled to go that extra mile. And in a lot of ways, guys are just going through the paces just to reach retirement. And to me, when I see this, I think, there's an example of it right there, not going the extra effort. They don't really, how much heart do they have in the job? I question their heart, and how much of the job feels this way right now. When you chat, if you're in Manhattan, next time, walk around, look at the cops. How much, just look at a cop for a quick minute. Does that cop look back at you and seem like he's happy? Or does he mean mug you when you look at him? I guarantee you're going to see cops looking angry. They're going to look at you like what the F are you looking at? And I think that's, the job isn't talking about it. The job isn't doing anything about it. But it's a problem, because eventually that frustration is going to be reflected on the public. And that just makes things even worse.
But like, you know, to be fair, like I think that's always been there. I think it's part of humanity. I think us as humans, we look for comfort, we seek ease, you know, we seek the easiest road. I think that leadership kind of breaks that nihilism. I think it also like alleviates it from other people as well. I'll give you one more story. I was a sergeant. I get called to a scene. 2 cops there. They're like, I'm not taking a report for this guy. I'm like, excuse me? I was like, tell me that again. And you know, when you're a sergeant, you're a supervisor. What I would always do is I talk to my cops first. I want to know, and I talk to them in private. Like, tell me what's going on. And as soon as the cop said it to me, I was like, first off, I was like, you don't ever call a supervisor and tell them what's going to happen. What are you trying to communicate to me? They're like, well, Sarge, this guy's an idiot and he's being mean to me and he's being nasty and I don't want to take a report for him. I was like, yeah, well, that doesn't matter. We don't judge people about if you agree with their politics or they're not nice to you. If he's reporting facts to you, it's your job to take it down. And I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, I wonder why he's mad. You know what I mean? In my head, I'm like, they definitely set him off, right? Like, because I've dealt with cops from the time I was a kid. I know how cops could be. They don't want to be bothered. They don't care. And so I went and talked to the guy. He was completely fine with me. I was like, yeah, so they're going to take the report for you. They said they're not going to take the report. I said, listen, we're not going to have a back and forth. Give us the details. We're going to take the report. This isn't a popularity contest. We're not going to go out to dinner after this. Let's just get documented what you need documented. I forget what it was. I don't remember if it was domestic incident. I don't really remember what it was, but I'll never forget that. I don't want to take a report for this guy because he's nasty for me. Were you nasty to him? And then I stayed there. I had a little time. It wasn't a busy night. I stayed there. They took the report. They left. And then I grabbed them after, and I'm like, hey, you know, I was like, I would have never called my sergeant for that. I'm like, that is absolutely ridiculous. I was like, and I would love to know how you guys treated him prior to this whole incident. I would love to see that, you know, and I'm sure I got bad mouthed behind my back, and I'm sure text messages went out that I'm on the side of perps and I'm on the side of this. But like the bottom line is this: I kept them safe from themselves. I made them better cops, and we got our job done, what we're paid and trained to do. And I think that's not happening today because everybody wants to be liked. Nobody could deal with that adversity. You know, I keep seeing the comments in here about how hard it is to get a complaint report because the COs don't want reports. I'm like, when I was a sergeant, it would be like every major you have to write a 49 for. Okay. What's ultimately the commanding officer telling you? What's he telling me? He's telling me don't take majors. That's what he's telling me. Every time you make it a major, I want you to call me. I'm going to rip you apart and you're going to do a 49. And I'm like, okay. I like to argue. I like the banter. I like the overtime. And so like every day after work, I would do my 4 to 12 and I wouldn't get home till about 4:30 in the morning. And everybody would be like, my wife would be like, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, I have to do all these 49s at the end of the night for everything that happened. You know, I have to do the reports. I can't go in early. I have to be out there supervising my guys. And I was still in plain clothes, running my own team with weekends off, 6 months into being a sergeant. You know, and so like there's things you need to do. That's your job. That's your job as a cop. That's your job. If your supervisor's not doing the job, you're going to have to bear the brunt of the stuff that they should be doing. And that stinks. That's terrible. But like you should still be doing your job. Just because things aren't hard or people are giving you shit for doing the right thing, you should know your job well enough that it doesn't matter what type of shit they're giving you. Oh, well, you know, I remember going back and forth with a lieutenant over what's a robbery. And the guy, he was literally trying to tell me, but they were friends. I was like, where in the penal code does it tell me that if you're friends, taking someone, beating them up and taking something out of their pockets is not a robbery? I didn't read that. It's clear as day robbery. I was like, sorry, it happened on your tour. It is what it is. We're going to get the perp. We have him identified. I mean, this isn't like a big deal here. You know what I mean? And even the part where we would lock people up sometimes for a felony and they would want it downplayed because they don't want to take the felony. And I'm like, are you kidding me? We have a felony that happened that's possibly related to a pattern that we haven't got there yet. And we have the perp, and you want me to downgrade this because you're scared to take a number and tell the CO? I'm like, I'll call him. Don't worry about it. I'll call him. I'll tell him about it. And that's just your job. Like, and so my thing is like, is that there in society? Yeah. Is it more prevalent today? Yeah, but I think we have weaker leaders here today. I think we have lower testosterone. We have people who are afraid, who want to be sergeants. They want to wear a stripe. They want the cool gold shield with the eagle shitting on top of the cop shield, or they want a cool white shirt, the nice, tight, shiny white shirt. But the last thing that they want to do is actually manage people and be supervisors. And that's your job. Your job isn't fun anymore. That's what you need to do.
Yeah, guys. Just know the thing is, remember what we said on here. Like, you got to do your job, and if they want to downgrade it or whatever, you got to do your job. You got to know the rules, know the law, and do your job. And I don't care what they do. I'm gonna still do my job. There was a point in the 7-7 when we had a lieutenant at the desk who he would try and shit can the felony. And this is when I just got on patrol. So what I did is I wouldn't drop my 61 when he's at the desk. I would wait, drop the 61 and photocopy it before I drop it in there. I did my job. Whatever you wanna go and violate policy and break the law, whatever. I did my part. Okay. And that's what I'm saying. You guys got to do your job. Because remember, he's not going to be there if you break policy and you break the law and you get thrown to the wolves. Okay. So you got to know the law and do your job as the public pays you to do it. And in this case, part of your job includes customer service and answering the public. When the public looks to you for help, no matter how wacky, some of them are or EDP they are, you gotta respond appropriately. At least make it look good.
Yeah, I mean, I again, you signed up, you swore an oath, and you said you were going to do something, so do it. Like I said, I never wanted to be a cop when I was a kid. I didn't even like cops up until almost right before I became a cop. My experiences with them weren't the best, and I dealt with the raw end of policing a lot. And, and like I said, my entire family has been arrested. We're breaking that cycle now where males in my family now, the younger males, have not been arrested, thankfully, have not had bad interactions with the police. But I always did my job, whatever it was, whether I was delivering medicine to hospice patients, whether I was sweeping the floors of somewhere, whether I was working behind a desk, I was delivering pizza, whatever I did to make $1. I was a recruiter at one point. I did it to the best of my ability. So there was no way I was going to go into policing and not give it my all. And I get your career is going to be threatened by going against your boss. Your career's threatened every single day. So is your life, so is your integrity, so is your character. One more story, and then I want to get off of this. But I'm sorry, but I don't understand what people are saying. I don't understand where you think that life is going to be easy and you're never going to get pushed back. I get called to the scene. I'm a new sergeant now. I got probably 2 weeks on. I work in the most political precinct in the NYPD. The chief of department calls the desk several times a day. I'm on patrol. I'm the patrol supervisor. It's a 4 to 12. It's a nice, beautiful summer afternoon. Well, a fall afternoon, excuse me. It's a fall afternoon. It's probably 6 o'clock. I get called to a job on Ocean Parkway where a male was in an accident. An elderly Hasidic male was in a car accident on Ocean Parkway. Now, the car can't be moved. It's so badly damaged that it can't be moved. So what happens is the sector shows up, and they're two good cops, right? It's one seasoned guy. He's got 16 years on patrol, and he's working with a rookie. But even the rookie's got 4 or 5 years on. So, and they've been working together a while, and they're a pretty self-sufficient team. They don't need a lot of supervision. They're not the biggest go-getters on the job, but they don't need a lot of supervision, and they do their job and they do it appropriately and they do what they got to do out there. Right. And that's fine. I always respect those guys. And so, but the guy calls me, the older cop calls me, and he's like, hey, Sarge, I need you over here. So I know that it's something I need to go over there for. Right. And so when I get there, it's not an elderly man in that car. It's a younger male who's around my age, right? A little bit older than me. Probably the male was in his 40s or 50s. I don't even know if I was 30 yet, but that guy. So when I get there, the older cop says to me, he's like, Sarge, the old man that's standing there, he got into the car accident. The car can't be moved. It can't be started. He wants his own tow truck. So his son showed up at the scene and jumped in the car. And he won't get out because he wants his own tow truck. Now, in New York City, we can't do that. We run on a DART program so that I can't dictate that my friend's going to tow the car, and there's no corruption there. Because in years past, there was corruption between New York City Police Departments and cops and tow truck companies, right? Because I could just get you all the business that you want, right? All you got to do is grease the wheels a little, right? So we run on this DART program. These tow truck companies, they go on this program. I call over to the radio and say, I need DART to show up. I need the car to be towed. It's immovable, and 911 gives it on a operational, on like a rotational schedule, so that it's fair. So all of the tow truck companies that want to be in that program get there. So he had already called DART. DART's on the scene. Male's refusing to leave. There's a ton of Hasidic people out there. Everybody has me on camera now when I get there. So I go speak to the gentleman, and I'm like, what's going on here, sir? He's like, I'm going to get this car towed myself. And I'm like, listen, I'm going to explain to you the DART program. I explained to him exactly what I just explained to you. And I'm like, and that's basically it. I'm like, you can't get your own tow truck. I said, if you were able to move the car to the side and start it, then this wouldn't be an issue. I would just let you get your own thing. But it's too late. You can't move the car. DARP's already here. The car's so badly damaged, it has to get towed this way. That's police procedure. You weren't in the car, so I need you to step out of the car, sir, and just let us do it. It operates on a rotational tow. You could call anybody and ask anybody. And he's like, no, you just called your friend, this, that, the other thing. I'm not paying the money for that. And I'm like, I explained it to him again. I'm like, listen, if you don't come out of the vehicle, I'm going to have to physically remove you. And I'm going to place you under arrest. And so now, like I said, there's all these cameras and reporters around. If anyone's worked in the 6-6, you should know there's a few hundred people on Ocean Parkway that day. So I asked the cameras, I go, come here, come around to me. So they all come around because what do I know? I know this guy's calling IAB. I know this guy's calling my precinct CO. I know it's going to go to the borough CO. I know it's going to go to community affairs because I could already tell what's happening. So I explained the whole thing on camera to him. And I'm like, sir, if you don't leave, I'm going to take you out of the window physically and lock you up. I'm giving you, this is your last warning. I explained it to you once off camera. I'm explaining it to you once like a gentleman on camera. I'm not going to give you another warning. And he looks over and says, F you. So I say, okay. So I reach in the car. I pin his chest to the car. I reach in. I take his seatbelt off. And I proceed to pull him out of the window. We pull him out of the window. The cops come over, help me, handcuff him. DART takes the car off. I put one under. He's on his way back to the precinct. My CO is calling me. John, what's going on over there? I said, what's going on over where? What's going on Ocean Parkway? I said, we had a male refusing to get out of a car, who refusing to let the car be DARPed. And he's already trying to diminish everything. I'm saying, oh, that's not right. I was like, no, that is right. That's exactly what we need to do. That's right. The car can't be moved to the side. So it goes in DARP. Well, I don't want that guy going back to the precinct. I was like, well, it's too late. I already put one under. He's coming back to the precinct. I said, and FYI, he doesn't have any ID on him, and he won't give us any ID. I said, so he's acting completely disorderly. He's refusing to follow orders. I said, and if I don't get his ID, not only is he getting arrested, he's going down to central booking as well because he's going to get put through the system. I don't want that. I'm like, well, I don't want it either, but, this is the situation we were put in. He's like, stay there. No problem. I stay there. Somebody's going to approach you. So who comes over to me? Someone that I see on the news often. Somebody that's a politician. Not going to say his name. And he's like, hey, Sarge, I heard you were the best sergeant here. right? Guy's I'm not even gonna say what he was, but he's high ranking in the political field. He's in an elected office. I heard you were the best sergeant here. I was like, well, I don't know that. I've only been here about 2 weeks, but thanks for the compliment. And he goes, what's going on here? I said, he goes, the guy in that car is a good friend of mine. And I was like, well, I respect that he's a good friend of yours. I said, but he's being completely disorderly. He wouldn't leave the scene. He refused to follow orders, and he won't give me ID. I said, so if you could just talk to him, I'd appreciate it. If you could give him ID, we could get him out of the precinct shortly. And then we could, I said, and then he could answer out at a later date what he did. Well, why can't we just release him? And I was like, because that's just not the way things go. I was like, we showed up to a scene. My guys didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. Your friend was cursing us out. He was completely disorderly, disrespectful. And I was like, and I don't take any of this personal, by the way. I understand he did it towards the uniform. He's having a bad day. Maybe he got a little emotional. I said, but I have to follow order at this point because I had news cameras on the scene. He had called IAB from the scene. I said, and respectfully, when I go down to be interviewed for all this, you're not going to say that you were here, that you asked me to do anything. And I said, and neither is the commanding officer. So my guys didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. And he proceeded to threaten my career. And he proceeded to call my CO, and to which my CO chewed me out again. And then a chief of community affairs had called me. And so same thing. I said, listen, chief, I'm not being a hard ass here. I was like, I don't take any of this stuff personally. I get it was towards the uniform. I understand that the guy's having a bad day, but he's going to give me ID and I'll release him from the precinct. We're not going to hammer him with charges. We'll release him with a C summons or a desk appearance ticket, but there is no way in hell that I'm going to give this guy a 250 or anything else. And I don't even know who his name is. And I'm going to jeopardize my guys because, again, when I go down to IAB, you're not going to be there. The politician's not going to be there. And my CO's not going to be there. And you're putting me and my guys on the hook. And I refuse to do it. I said, I'm not being a hard ass. And I understand my career has been threatened twice already. And I feel like it's being threatened for the third time. I said, and that's fine. I said, I didn't ask to come to this precinct. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anyone. I'm just doing my job. And if today's my last day in the precinct, I understand. And he goes, okay. And he hangs up the phone with me. I see that he calls the politician. Politician picks up the phone, comes over to me, and the politician says, you know what? You're okay. You're right. I apologize. He's gonna get you his ID. I said, okay. And that's what I dealt with about 7 or 8 times a day. Like, that's your fucking job, bro.
Yeah. Hey guys, do your job, and be more tactful if there's a camera in your face, most certainly, because in this day and age you're going to be all over social media. Now those cops are going to be all over social media now, and it's going to land on somebody's desk in 1PP. So you just got to do your job, and you got to be more tactful at it and you got to be smarter about it, especially when the camera is thrown in your face. Okay. So.
Yeah. And it wasn't Dove Hiken, by the way. It wasn't Dove Hiken. It wasn't him. But yeah, so that's just my thing, especially when the camera's in your face. And that's what I'm saying. It's not being a hard ass. You got to learn how to communicate with people. It's like, hey, I'm not doing this because of this. Yeah. You're asking me to do this, and I'm unwilling to do it. Believe me, people are going to back down, and they're not going to come after you. They're just going to say, all right, you know what? It is what it is. You know what? He's right. At the end of the day, I had a politician, a chief, and an inspector reaming me out. And at the end of the day, they were all patting me on the back, and all those guys loved me after that. You know what I mean? Because I was able to communicate what was happening. And I was like, and I wasn't being a hard ass. I didn't care that the guy told me to F myself. I truly didn't care. But I was like, I'm not putting my guys in a bad spot. I'm not putting myself in a bad spot. And I'm not going to show the men and women that work for me that I'm going to back down to when the community puts pressure on. I'm just not. You know what I mean? It is what it is. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to be asked to do things that are illegal on this job. You're going to do it? I'm not. I never did. I'm not doing it. I don't care. Oh, my CO's not going to like me? Okay. You going to take my weekends off? Okay. What are you going to do? You got to be open to that. You got to be open to all those possibilities. So speaking of not backing down, So Captain Mark Schwartz gets promoted. Some of you guys might know about Mark Schwartz. Mark Schwartz was a lieutenant in the 109. A then unknown assistant commissioner walks into the 109 precinct in plain clothes, does not identify himself, and is furious that Lieutenant Mark Schwartz doesn't salute him. And so Mark Schwartz gets transferred from the 109 to Staten Island. Chief of Patrol calls up, has him immediately transferred from the 109 to Staten Island. A bunch of bullcrap charges ensue on Captain Mark Schwartz, on Lieutenant Mark Schwartz, and he's held up from being promoted for a very long time over nonsense. So congratulations, Captain Mark Schwartz. He walked across the stage. So I put this tweet out, something along the lines of, if you see John Shell sitting there, John Shell was the then Chief of Patrol when Mark Schwartz was transferred from the 109 to Staten Island for not saluting someone that he wasn't required to, someone that did not properly identify themselves, and someone that was not in uniform, and someone that no one knew who the F they were at the time. So Mark Schwartz gets promoted, and I put the face you look, the face you make when the guy who, in sum and substance, career you decided to try to destroy because he wouldn't salute someone he wasn't required to, gets promoted to captain. And that made John Shell very mad. So John Shell, from his own name, which I respect, pulls out from his own name on his own Twitter account. He pulls out this this meme of me making fun of me. He has me as Bob the Builder, John the Builder. He doesn't list the 120 and my other careers, but he lists 12366 IB BMS, and he writes New York City media personality on there from his own personal account. And I think it's funny, by the way. I get a good kick out of it. I know what I'm going to be for Halloween this year. It's going to be Bob the Builder. So thank you, John, for letting us know. But what I find funny about this is basically John Shell, from behind his own name, has basically proven to us that he was all those fake handles that we thought he was. Because this meme has been distributed by handles with 0 followers that follow nobody but us over and over again throughout the years, including while our children were being threatened. So it just shows that, in all likelihood, the chief of department, the highest ranking uniform member of the service, is online behind fake handles, trolling the podcast, trolling our social media, and he had exposed himself because he was very mad at the tweet. And then, I put a little video out. I'm not going to get into it, basically saying I don't harbor any hard feelings. He's entitled to it. It wasn't on his work account. It was on his own personal Twitter account. It wasn't behind a fake handle this time. So I respect it. I'm not mad at it. But then even last night, fake handles who I believe that he's directly behind, Frankie Farillo, a few other ones. I forget the other guy's name. There was a couple of different stupid handles that he had. All cops are complainers. Gene Lewis. I mean, it's basically said to me like, oh, yeah, that was you. Oh, that is you. That is you. And the other thing is, I think, like, if I was running the largest police department in the world, should I be focused on what online personalities are saying or people on podcasts are saying? And I think we all know the answer, and the answer is absolutely not. And should we be presenting ourselves in a better manner? And I think the answer is absolutely that they should. And when you see cops not understanding their job, when you see supervisors not doing their job, I mean, look at the leadership. How would you expect them to do their job? They're concerned with any criticism. And by the way, it's also shown that our criticism is highly factual. Because I make a lot of statements online, and they're never debunked. We make a lot of statements on this podcast, all of us, and they're never debunked. What always happens? It's character smears. It's, oh, well, you only worked here. It's like, okay, true, fair, 100%. You got me. You got me, John. I only worked there. So what am I saying that's wrong, though?
Yeah. We said it how many times? If they would just address these issues, then we would have nothing to talk about. but instead they rather come online and like get into a Twitter rant about us criticizing them. The issues that we bring up, if you had tackled a lot of them like well before, they wouldn't be a problem right now. We've been talking about the manpower issues for how long now, and now the job has to hide the true crime statistics because they're short of manpower. And so it just I'm a little I'm so like confused that we have the highest ranking uniform person uniform chief in the NYPD, and you'd rather spend more time on the internet than actually fixing some of the issues on the job, and that completely puzzles me.
Yeah. So last night, shout out to Crazy 10-7, by the way. He says nobody knows shit the way the job works. Yeah. Unless you do it, right? Unless you do it and you're in there and you experience it and you actually do it. Because I know a lot of people that are on that job that have been on that job for a very long time and they never experienced it because they always stay back. They don't go in the front, or they just go with the waves. They just go with the flow, So then when you think about it, and then last night, like I was saying, there was all these like attacks about Sal, that how are you at a baseball game? How do you afford that? You were terminated. You work for Home Depot. You're a Steven Seagal lookalike. And again, like I was saying from the get-go with all the threats and all the nonsense is like, I never cared about the cops. I cared the fact that I believed, and I still believe, that it was being orchestrated by the upper echelon of the NYPD in conjunction with New York City Mayor's office. And I mean, clearly we've shown proof time and time again over that. And so like, that's the thing that really bothers me, And so like, even last night, and then they have their little cronies following them around. So I said to John Shell, or who I believe to be John Shell, I said to a fake handle, who I don't know who it is, but I believe is the chief of department in New York City. I said, why don't you, instead of focusing on what the hell we're talking about online or Sal going to a baseball game, why don't you make sure that your guys aren't in the Penn Station bathroom blowing dudes? Because that's another allegation that's happening, that coming out of the chief of department's office, that a sergeant who works in the unit that checks for white socks on cops, because wearing white socks is an infraction if you're a police officer and you could be penalized for it, was blowing two dudes inside of Amtrak Station and Amtrak PD, captured it on body cameras, what's being alleged. And it's being alleged that they were all arrested and placed in handcuffs. And nobody was suspended or anything. And then we started talking about it, and there was a lot of fake handles online coming out and talking about it and, naming people. And I'm not going to do that because, again, I don't name people unless I know for a fact, and I don't know for a fact. Just because there was an order that someone was modified and then later suspended does not mean that that's the case. It does look suspicious, though. However, there was a sergeant from the chief of department's office who was modified immediately after these allegations came out, and then later on was suspended. But it's also being alleged that the other two males were actually arrested and he wasn't. He was only issued a summons. And sounds to me like this is another Jeffrey Madry scandal, except for worse, where Jeffrey Madry used his authority as the chief of department to get his friend, a retired cop, out of an arrest after a sergeant had established probable cause. And this would actually be an active member of service. I'm unaware if the person is being alleged to be on duty or off duty. Although I don't think it matters criminally, I think it matters administratively, whether they were on or off duty. And so I think this would be actually a worse scenario where someone was actually arrested, an on-duty cop, and you intervened, got them off, and tried to downplay the whole incident. Like, what are your thoughts about all that stuff that's coming out?
Well, that's the same thing that came up to me to my mind. The incident with Madry when he basically he basically shit canned an arrest in the 7-3 because the cop was a former cop of his. The detective was the now retired detective was a former cop of his. But yeah, I'm gonna say this might be even worse because the word is that the Amtrak cops are like they're under investigation right now themselves. So now we managed to rope another department into this, and you know, other cops might be facing department discipline for having gone along with this. So I think this is worse, and I think it's going to probably get bigger because I'm sure the department is behind the scenes are doing all they can to make sure the media doesn't get a hold of that video, and to make sure that this is wrapped up quickly and buried. Yeah, but again, it goes back to like what I said. Why aren't we focusing on these problems? You have like, think how bad the NYPD's been looking to other, nationally, to other police departments. We're looking like a junior varsity team here. Well, where's all the professionalism going? We have all these incidents. We have like security failures. We have cops that are the numerous on-duty booty scandals coming out of one PP and sexually related, scandals coming out of there, and they just keep happening over and over and over again. And other departments must be getting a sense of that the NYPD's undisciplined right now. And where's the chief uniformed officer to come down and bring back discipline to the job and to get the ship back on track? No, he's more concerned with stroking his ego online. I just don't understand like why. In fact, I don't understand why this keeps happening, because I thought Tish was supposed to be I thought she was the second coming of Ray Kelly here and a disciplinarian, and yet clearly it seems like the people underneath her keep running amok. Because like what Chief O'Hare, if this it happened, as is alleged, okay, what made Chief O'Hare think that this was a good idea? Because I can assure you, he probably wouldn't have done that if Ray Kelly was there, But apparently, it's like, it's like they don't have to worry about the boss on the top floor anymore,
No, yeah, and people are saying, "Oh, like why outline what John Shell does? Like you're wasting time on it." And I don't think it's a waste of time at all, because I think it's actually highlighting what the hell the focus is. You know what I mean? Again, I put out a little video online, and it really, like, I held that speech in my head the entire time I was a cop. The doer of deeds, right? So even on my arm, I have it tattooed on me, doer of deeds, up on top, right? The Theodore Roosevelt speech is not the critic that counts. It's not the man who points out where the strong man stumbles. The credit belongs to the man that's in the arena, the man whose face is scarred by sweat and dust, and and it goes on. And basically what it is basically saying that, like, you're always going to be judged. And whether you ultimately win or lose doesn't matter, because you'll never be with those cold, timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat because they were too scared to ever be in that arena. I'm no longer in the arena. Marlon's no longer in the arena. Eric, Sal, we're the critics. So we don't count, and I look at Eric Dim. He was smeared in the papers. He didn't come out swinging online. I look at all the incidents I was involved in as a police officer. I didn't come out swinging online. I wasn't even online. I wasn't on social media until I retired, because I was actually in the arena. I was like, I don't need to go on the news. I make the news, and that's how I always looked at it. And that's as a cop, as just a patrol cop. That's how you should look at it. Like, everything you do, you're going to be judged 8 ways to Sunday, but you were the person in the arena. Your sergeant that's criticizing you, but they weren't at that job, they're the critic. Your CO that's too scared to come out of his house, or is calling you on 4th of July from his party while he's drunk, telling you to take doors down because he wants the fireworks to stop, he's the critic. He's not in the arena. You're in the arena. You got to make decisions. You got to put your head on the pillow at night. And when you're leading the largest department in the world, the thickness and the toughness you need to have because I mean, the amount of criticism you're going to get is going to be phenomenal. I mean, like I just listened to Carmelo Anthony's Hall of Fame speech and how he was like so enamored by New York City and playing in there. And like he said, oh, once a Knick, always a Knick, I'll always be a Knick. But he was talking about all the boos, all of the cheers, and how hard it was being in the epicenter of the world, how hard it is to be a basketball player in the epicenter of the world with the amount of scrutiny that you're under. And believe me, I don't think that as a cop in any precinct on patrol, you have any less scrutiny than Carmelo Anthony. You're the doer of deeds, my friend, or you're a detective grinding it out anywhere you are. You're the doer of deeds. You're out on the street. You respond to 911 calls, and for me to think like the level of toughness you need to have to actually be a high performing police officer. And then to think that when you get the actual privilege to be the highest ranking uniform member of the service in the department, wear that uniform, have your name on that wall forever. What an honor that is. And you can't stand up to a little media criticism. You're worried about what Harry Siegel's printing. You're worried about what John McCarry's saying. You're worried about what Eric Dim or Sal Greco are saying. Why? What do you care? You're in the arena. And so you have bigger things to worry about. You have a lot bigger things to worry about. You have people getting killed on New York City streets every day. Shootings are all over the place. You have homeless. You have women who are afraid to take the subways. You have cops that are quitting daily. You have seasoned, experienced veterans who want out. There's corruption abound all over your department. And you're worried what a couple of flunky lieutenants are saying? Come on, dude. It matters. It matters big. So when you see the unprofessionalism down low, just look up top. That's where it's coming from.
Yeah, it's also, yeah, I don't know if you guys are hearing that, but yeah, it's also worth pointing out, again, if this happened as alleged, Chief O'Hare is, he comes out of Chief of Department's office. So again, about discipline and about leadership, if it seems to me like there's none even in that office, let alone that Chell is a leader of of the department. So I think you are bigger. I know you're probably watching this, Chell, but I think you got bigger problems than just a couple of podcasters. You have multiple fires going at the same time in the job, and I think they take more priority rather than trying to. I said before that the job has a tendency to kick the can down the road, keep rubber stamping policies that don't work rather than solving the problem. And then later on, it's going to be a bigger problem for whoever's running the administration then. But you have multiple fires going right now. And I think it behooves you to tend to those fires rather than to come online and again, stroke your ego because some podcasters criticized you and rightfully criticized you for policy that you should have fixed when you got in there. Okay, you as soon as you became chief of department, you should have seen what happened to Marjorie. You needed a stern leader to get in there and bring order and bring discipline certainly to that office. And have you? Doesn't seem like you have right now because again, Chief O'Hare comes out of your office. Okay, so again, tend to those fires, please.
Well, I think, and again, like I said, and I think it really, like that's my advice for the chief of department. Like, don't worry about what we're saying online. Get offline. Put your phone down, dude. Don't worry about what Harry Siegel's going to write on Sunday. Don't worry about what the city paper's saying or the Post. Don't worry about what you hear on Newsmax or Fox. Get off of it. Stop looking at your phone, dude. Make sure the guys in your office aren't blowing dudes inside of Penn Station. Like, that's my legit. I'm not kidding. Like that's just the least you could do. Now, never mind. Look at like why people are leaving, why they're not taking the job, why patrol cops are acting that way, why the unprofessionalism and the breakdown, why there's a breakdown in tactics. Get in, do your job, be all in. Even if you got a couple of months left, be all in for those last couple of months. I'm not even really being silly when I'm saying it. That's really my legitimate advice. That's what I would, if you were my best friend, that's what I would tell you. That would be my advice to you. Because I think it's sound advice. I do. I think it's advice that, like I said, I had a shake box lieutenant, and he used to say all the time to me that, like, I just want to make sure that, one, he wouldn't want me to drive because he's like, you're not killing me. He goes, I want to retire. And then the other one is, and I'm a good driver, by the way. So, like, I drive like grandma. People used to say, get out, I'll run. I'll get out. Let me out. I'll run fast. I'll beat you. So he used to do that. And the other thing he would always say is, yeah, I just want to make sure that you're not raping somebody in the bathroom stall and I'm going to jail and losing my career. And I'm like, all right, fair enough. I get it, and like, when you're in charge of the largest department in the world, you got a lot of weight on your shoulders, my friend. A lot of weight, not a couple of guys that are criticizing you. Whether and like Marlon said, I think most of our criticism is well-deserved criticism. And I think that's ultimately why there's never been a period where you, Kaz, or Eric Adams have ever tried to come on the podcast, is because you can't hold up to the criticisms that we have because they're fair and valid and you really don't have an answer for it. So, I think that's one thing. And then another thing had just came out. There's a handle on X. It's called Lieutenant Douchebag. I don't know who it is. And like I said, I don't like naming people unless I know for a fact that I saw the video and I saw who they were. And I don't like sharing photos of people because we've seen how that happened with the act of terrorism, the recent mass shooting that occurred in Midtown Manhattan. There was so much misinformation going around. But in this scenario, he's making some pretty serious allegations. So he says, NYPD News. I'm disturbed and outraged by this blatant corruption within the NYPD. How can they hire a female officer with an active PCI card, investigation card, from grand larceny? It's infuriating that she was pushed through from the academy without anyone addressing this serious issue. So there's all different types of investigations that happen that you could be placed in. So an I-card doesn't necessarily mean that you committed the crime. However, you're either a suspect or a witness in a crime. And from what this person says is it's a grand larceny. Right. And so that's a problem, because does it mean that as a police officer, if a police officer stops you and you have an I-card, they have probable cause to arrest you? No, they don't. But however, if you're arrested and you have an I-card or a police officer encounters you, they should be questioning you about this. Like if I arrested someone for an unrelated fraction and they had an I-card, what I would do is notify the detective who put that I-card out. Like, hey, I have this person here. Do you want me to hold them for you to interview them? And 90% of the time they would say, yeah, I'm coming right over. And they would come interview them. So here's a cop applying for a job and they're under investigation for grand larceny. Doesn't mean they committed it, but it hasn't been properly investigated yet. So Brooklyn grand larceny had the integrity to issue an I-card for this recruit. Yet they were pressured to remove it by a sergeant from the Candidate Assessment Division. This is an absolute disgrace. When the detective stood his ground and refused to drop the I-card, Deputy Chief Mastronardi himself had to intervene, telling the detective to back off or lose your position so she could be hired. So again, who's the doer of deeds there and who's the critic? The detective feels a need for this I-card and a need to interview them. And the chief, Mastronardi, himself feels like he has to intervene. He's the critic, right? If what is being alleged is true. He goes on to say, and who is Deputy Chief Mastronardi? The head of Crimes Against Persons Unit. The irony is sickening. The unit is a joke. And their commanding officer is actively enabling someone with a criminal active I-card to join the force. Where is internal affairs in all of this? Why aren't they investigating? Is it because he's aligned with Chief of Department John Schell? Question mark. It's pathetic. Chief Schell, you failed again. This is a complete failure of public safety in New York City. Someone with an active I-card should be facing justice, not be welcomed into law enforcement. This is a disgusting example of a system that picks and chooses who gets accountability. I'm guessing Joe Gonzalez, an activist in the 7-9 Community Council, was right all along. So I'm assuming that Lieutenant Douchebag was from the 7-9. And I think it shows. Oh, look who it is. So Eric, there's been a little before you comment on this real quick. Just there's been a little debate here. I said that you're coming back to America because you have to drive through Canada, and someone in the chat is going absolutely insane about it. And from what I know about the world is Canada is not part of America. However, it is attached in the landmass as part of North America. So I think that my statements would in fact be true that you are coming back to America. Am I right or am I wrong?
Good morning, everybody. Marlon, John, awesome show. I appreciate it. I actually, I found a spot. I was like, I got service. So I stopped and took some time out to jump in with you guys. Awesome show, by the way. Yeah, I'm about 40 miles from the border. I'm about to hit Canada. Last I checked.
He's still in America, Omar. That's who it was. It was Omar. He's still in America.
I'm 40 miles from the border, but yeah, I got my passport ready. Yeah. But listen, let me tell you this. Alaska, this is the real America. This is the last frontier, brother. This is the real America.
Could I take from Penn Station bathrooms? Could I take a train to Alaska?
You know what's funny? Because I was listening before I got full service and jumped in, and you said something great, right? Because a lot of people said the same thing to me. They're like, "Why don't you guys just ignore John Shell?" And I said, "Why don't John Shell just ignore us?" And that's the point right there. I was smeared in the paper. I was attacked by Cop Wash. I was stalked for almost a decade, and I never responded. I mean, the most nasty, vile stuff, including death threats. And there was every reason to believe it was possibly connected to Cop Watch. Could I prove it? No. But I never responded because I was in the arena. I was doing the job. But the question is this, and this is what the public should be concerned about. If John Shell is so concerned about 2 retired lieutenants, and now the entire Finest and Filtered network, which includes Marlon, Sal, and Rob and Ron, and if they're so concerned about our perspective and our criticism, and he's being distracted and not able to focus, what happens to the rest of the job? Do other people in the job, do they now respond to every time there's criticism? So this could be just an epidemic disease that runs through the entire department and just lose complete leadership, complete discipline, integrity, and just the communication with the public. And this is, we joke around about it, but it's actually a bigger picture. It's a bigger problem. And the question is this, and this is what people should be concerned about, is why is John Shell responding as John Shell? And the idea is that we respect the rank and the role and the billet of the chief of department. It's not about John Shell. It should be about the chief of department, the NYPD. That's my point. And John, I know you agree. Why are you responding as John Shell? It's not about you. It's not about you. Because when you retire, someone else will be in your shoes and there'll be a new chief of department. So he should respect the rank. So I feel sorry for him and I feel sorry for the job because he's not respecting the rank and the position. He's taking it to the point where it's not the chief of department, it's John Shell. That's the problem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then when, so we started putting out memes again because I'm like, you know what? If you're going to keep taking nasty shots at all of us from behind fake names, I'm going to just start putting the memes out again. You know why? Because I know you hate them. I know it gets under your skin. And so every time there's cheap shots taken at us, we're going to take one right back, and so that's the thing. I didn't really care. I really was. My thing was what I said online. I was good. We were good at that point. I'm like, I don't care. You want to take a shot at my career? You're good. Full well, you can abuse me all day long. I don't give a shit. But what about our criticisms that are wrong? Oh, nothing. You can't tell us anything. Oh, right. So we're right. And then, like I said, with the whole meme, we know that meme, right? That meme was out there when our kids were getting threatened. That memes were out there when criminals were threatening us. That meme was out there. And it's like, oh, so you are associated with all the things that we thought you were. You just confirmed it for me.
Yeah.
So, Marlon, before I respond, I just wanted to ask the both of you, and the question is this. Do you think it matters because we're podcasting, we're giving criticism. Does it matter if the criticism, let's say our criticism, let's be rhetorical and say the three of us were completely off base and we had no idea what we're talking about, and our criticism was completely wrong. Should he then respond, or should he still not respond? I think whether we're right or wrong, he shouldn't respond at all. And that would be the stoicism, and that's the real leadership. Marlon, what do you think on that? I mean, I just think he shouldn't respond at all.
Yeah, I agree. I think he should get his head down. What's that phrase that Eric Adams always using, like head down, stay on the grind or something?
Stay focused, keep grinding.
Yeah. You should take. He should heed his boss's words, and stay focused on the job, And again, if you stay focused on the job and you fix these problems, we'd have nothing to talk about. We'd certainly have less to talk about. And going back to what I said before about that organization nihilism, right? So you're working 17 hours, right? You're seeing your partners. A lot of your partners forced off the job. A lot of them fired. Some of them fired because they didn't take the vax. You're seeing guys walking in the precincts trying to hurt you. You're feeling supervisors are trying to can complaints. You're feeling like nobody cares. Nothing really matters. Like policing, it doesn't really matter, because your boss is busy on Twitter yelling at podcasters. Okay, so this is where that organization nihilism comes in. It's like, does it really matter? Does doing your job effectively really matter? No, just go through the paces, get through the day, and keep it moving. Because certainly at the top, it seems like they don't care. Okay, think of it: the guy who has a circle jerk in Penn Station, it is keeping. He wasn't suspended until we started talking about it. Meanwhile, we have cops who get suspended for doing like not even a third of that. Okay, so tell me, how does this make cops feel like they're anything but a number? No, it doesn't. And this is why again, like I said, you're seeing cops that seem disinterested, bored, that just going through the paces, and they don't, they just want to get through the day, just get another day closer to retirement so they can walk away from this.
No, yeah, it's like I said, I think like all the hate that we get online, like how many people say nasty, like untruthful things about me all day long, like literally all day. I don't respond to any of it because it's not true. I laugh at it. I'm like, oh, look at this. Like if I even notice it, I'll laugh at it. And so like I think that again, like his responding and his responses and all these fake names and these fake handles just show that exactly what we're saying that they also believe is correct. Or else there wouldn't be a need to try to like get out there. I was actually listening to something that Tariq Shepard had said, where he said, we got to get back out there online and let the public know what we're doing. We got to be in that sphere too. So basically saying they got to control the narrative, and so like that was the whole mission of them getting online and then going out and doing these media hits. They basically followed the blueprint of the finest Unfiltered, but they failed miserably. And by the way, we don't come at you but from fake names. That's the difference. That's the other thing. We don't use fake names. We say what we got to say. We stand behind it. And that was the first time he actually did it. So I was like, okay, I respect that. You know what I mean? Should you be doing it? No. And then people are like, oh, well, why are you responding to him? He's the highest ranking member of the service in the New York City Police Department. If I'm not responding to comments from him, I'm not going to respond to comments from anybody, So, I think he has any validity to what he's saying? Absolutely not. Like I said, I think I had a much better career than him. I didn't get the years in that he had in. If I did, I think my career would have ended up much better than his. And again, when I'm in New York City and I'm there often, I get love from the rank and file of the NYPD. I don't believe he has that true same love. I don't.
I just want to say, shout out to the chat. By the way, friends and listeners, I appreciate you watching. Sorry I couldn't be here for the entire show today, but it's quite interesting. I'm doing it from my phone right now, and you can't see the comments. So if there's any good comments out there, I want to thank you. I'll check them out. I see them when John puts them up, and there's 2.5 hours into it. So thank you, John and Marlon, for kicking off an awesome show. I think we should absolutely respond to John Schell, and anyone in the arena should not be responding because they should be stoked, but it's our job as critics. to actually keep them on their toes and keep that pressure. That's what keeps the professionalism going. And that's what shows the stoicism when they don't respond, because you should be so consumed with the work and so busy being a leader that you don't even have the time to respond. So the fact that he not only does he have the time to respond, but he has enough time invested that he responds emotionally. And the fact that he's so emotionally invested should be a concern for the entire police department, the public, and the politicians, because how can this man with over 30 years experience be in the role of chief of department, which is the most important uniform role for the largest department in the entire world? How can he be trusted, and how can he be trusted to handle times of pressure when the pressure of the podcast is more of a concern than what's going on in the public? So for just those attributes alone should be a major concern for the public. And that's why we should constantly respond, because people should look at this and say, wait a minute, can this man handle the pressure of the NYPD, the communication with the DA's office, the politicians, the media, and of course his own police officers? And the question is obviously no. And we have to ask, what is his mental health at this point? With over 30 years on the job, he's been through a traumatic experience where he took the life of another, and it's been questionable or not. How can we trust and someone that's been in the circle of an entire scandal throughout this administration, which may be putting him on edge also? How can he be trusted to handle the entire police department, especially the largest police department in the world? Especially now. And I've highlighted, and I constantly say it until it just beats people down. There are 3 tiers on this job. We see it time and time again. So thank you to Lieutenant Douchebag for pointing out that tweet about what's happening in the Penn Station bathrooms, what's happening with a potential candidate in the academy. If you have a chance, take a look at that tweet. Also, Lieutenant Douchebag put that out. So the point is that John Schell should not be in this position, because it should not be about John Schell. He should be so consumed. He should have no idea what we said. And even then, if someone informs him, hey, listen, you see what John said about you? See what Eric said, or Marlon or Sal? He should be so consumed that it doesn't matter, and should roll off and say, you know what? They're not really talking about John Schell. They're talking about chief of department in the NYPD. And maybe say to himself, what are they saying? They're talking about morale? Morale is right through the toilet. Imagine the general population of the NYPD. If you were caught in the bathroom, literally with your pants down, what would happen to you? But yet, if you're tier 1, you're upper echelon, you could keep your pants down all day. You could probably, shake your dingling in front of everybody and you'll be fine. And if you're tier 2 and you're connected by family, friends, and your favorites and your nepotism and cronyism, you could walk on water too. And that's where the morale goes, right down the toilet.
Yeah. Eric S., I see your comment in the chat. Largest police department, but aren't you guys constantly crying about needing cops? Yes, Eric, we are, because we have New York, the metropolitan New York area has 20 million people. Think of that. New York City alone, what's the number at now? Is it 10 million people by now? But listen, New York City, Brooklyn alone has more people than say Chicago, okay, or South Florida. In Brooklyn alone, okay. So yeah, we need more cops. We have less cops. We have the same equivalent cops now as when we had a million fewer people. Okay, think of that. We have 1 million more people, but we have less cops than that. So how are we? Do you want, if you want service? Okay, we talked about this from the get-go, that we're customer service with a firearm. Okay, so if we don't have enough cops to serve the public, how are you going to get the best customer service experience that you can get? Do you like when you call like a service center and you get somebody from like a foreign country that barely speaks English and barely understands you? Does that frustrate you? Because I know it frustrates me every time, and I'm always asking, hey, can I speak to an American? Now, when you're in the street and you're calling 911 and 911 takes a while to get there, or when you have a quality of life complaint in your community, and police take months to respond to that, how do you feel? You're going to feel the same way. So the point is that we're a big city. We're the largest city in the country. but we're underserved when it comes to cops because we have less cops now than when we had a million fewer people.
All right, listen. So Eric kind of threw us off. Let's get on the last topic and get out of here. It's 2 hours, 40 minutes. I can't really go much longer. So last topic, we just talked about it. Supposedly there was a recruit with an iCard, and a chief in the NYPD is telling the detective to take down the iCard and just let's have the recruit be on the job and forget about the iCard. What do you guys think about that?
So shout out to Lieutenant Douchebag, of course, for putting that out on the internet. And I do know
I still want to know who Lieutenant Douchebag is, and if he's retired. Honestly, I take everything he says with a grain of salt. Like I take everything that anyone that comes from behind the fake handle does. We come out here with our own names all the time, and I think everybody should. If you're retired, you stand behind your words. That's just how I feel.
I actually do know the identity of Lieutenant Douchebag. I wouldn't give it out, but yes. No, it's a good point. So
stand behind your words if you're retired.
I think that it's just a shame that, I made a joke about having scandal stat at this point because the NYPD has a stat for everything, right? You have comp stat, you have force stat, narco stat. There's a stat for everything on this job. There's no doubt about it. But at this point, honestly, they need scandal stat. They need to be able to keep a handle on this. Keep a handle on the scandal. Maybe that'll be the new. Maybe that'll be the new slogan. Keep a handle on your scandal, because it's just one after another, and this police department doesn't surprise us anymore. I mean, if in fact,
Eric, I'm sorry to
what's
interrupt
that?
you, Eric, but putting a handle on the scandal is kind of what that's a problem,
There's a problem, right? It is a problem. It's just
don't do it.
No, you're right. It's really sad at this point that the NYPD is so consumed by scandals, and it's not even just the upper echelon anymore. It's stemmed throughout the entire department. And the reason why I say that is because we've all become complicit at this point. Because at this point, obviously, I keep saying it, the active chiefs on this job have a significant role in the potential corruption and the appearance of impropriety. Because whether they're corrupt or not, the fact that they're complicit and silent is a problem that stems throughout the entire department. And yes, at some point, the entire department would have to speak out. And how does that happen? By the unions. The unions would have to represent them and say, well, we've had enough. We've had enough. And this potential allegation with a recruit is just, I think is horrific. It's horrific. I appreciate Lieutenant Douchebag and many others that have spoken out with, but at some point, yes, I do hope at some point that this person feels comfortable to come out with their name, because that's what's important. Also, that what you put out, you stand by it, because it does take courage. It does take courage, because we put ourselves out here in the limelight, and we've risked it all. We've risked it all, and at the same point, you have to show other people also that there is strength, and this podcast is a support system so that people can speak out. But this potential incident that happened with recruits, this actually makes the incident in the bathroom look like nothing. This is a huge problem, because it just shows the weight. And I really do believe it validates and it solidifies what I've been saying. Every active chief on this job is compromised. How can anyone say at this point, if you're an active chief, that you don't know what's going on? We've gotten to this point where we've had potential corruption for 3 years. So, okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Maybe in the beginning, maybe you had silent and maybe you fell on deaf ears, but at this point, you have podcasters, you have media, you have so much information out there right now. If you're not looking and probing yourself to say, hey, what's going on? Because I need to avoid it also, you are definitely seeing it. We see it from a distance. How do you not see it up close?
Yeah. I find it interesting that this
Did you just freeze them? I think Marlon just froze up. Or was it me?
Did I? Can you hear me?
No, it was you.
Yeah.
John froze.
Yeah. He froze up.
It wasn't me.
It was me. Yeah, it's you, John. You froze. Yeah. So I find it interesting. This incident with the iCard and the cop is, the chief of personnel comes up again, and it's pretty interesting that his name is coming up again in this incident, considering we had Kelly Grace Price on South Shore about 2-3 weeks ago, and she was talking about the psychological the issue with the unlicensed psychologist, and Chief Benoit's name came up once more in that. So there might be some smoke there, and I think Eric Sanders has a case, has Frankie Palacucci's case, and I think Chief Benoit's name is going to come up again in that case, and I have to wonder what's going on there now. So I think
But again, I think I take everything from behind fake names with a grain of salt. I just do. I do. I'm not knocking anyone for doing it, but I mean, like, if maybe then don't spread rumors if you're still on the job, or there's something there. But like, if you're gonna talk about it, let's talk about it. I don't think there's anything to be afraid of telling the truth. Oh, he's not finalized. Oh, okay, I don't care. Same thing with me. I vested. I came out swinging immediately on vested. I never received my pension yet. You know what I mean? And like, I didn't think about that. I was like, it is what it is. I'm like, I'm saying what has to be said. I got forced out of my career. I'm going to say what I need to say. You know what I mean? And I want to do this. I'm going to say it. And your words don't hit as hard if they're not from your name. And that's my point. It's like, there's really nothing to be afraid of. If we're afraid of telling the truth, we're headed to a totalitarian communist society. Like, we're filled with a nihilist society where we're going to believe lies. I still, till today, it bothers me. The whole COVID thing bothers me, because most of the people are still living and pretending in a lie and not really looking at what happened. They fancy themselves as hero. They fancy themselves as Americans. And yet they're going nuts that Governor Ron DeSantis wants to pull down the mandates. And I'm like, I don't want everything to be cloaked. And I want us to be able to say what we need to say from who we are. And, so so like I said, if it's true what he's saying, I think that it's really bad. I think it shows the level that the job is at just to get recruits on the job. That's why we accept more criminality. We have less physical standards. We have less standards in the NYPD, and it's because of things like that. And so, if in fact that's true, and I believe it to be true, just because we've said it time and time again, they're lowering psych standards. They're lowering criminal standards. They're even taking people who they believe to be actively involved in criminality onto the job. And it just highlights everything that we've been saying the whole time. The physical standards are lowered. The training in the academy sucks. And what can you expect from these hiring classes? I'll tell you, a lot of corruption scandals in the future. A lot more than you even see now.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, imagine being a brand new police officer at this point, and in this era, and the majority of the police officers at this point have less than 5 years on the job. And the only impression of you have is the Eric Adams administration. Your chief of department was involved in a scandal where someone received an excess of $200,000. It did not receive any discipline. The chief of department now is acting like a complete unhinged maniac, a man-child teenager on social media. You've watched numerous scandals, right? Keep a handle on the scandal after scandal. And you're saying to yourself, wow, this is just one big frat house. And maybe you don't understand that this is a 3-tiered system, and that if you're part of general population, that rules will apply to you at this point. And you've already been hired in this police department with the sketchy record yourself. This is a recipe for disaster. I think that this is actually going to get far worse. And I think that John Schell, Jeffrey Madry, and this entire administration, they planted the entire seed. So while eventually John Schell will move on, and so will Kaz Daughtry, because everything comes to an end, and so will Eric Adams, this department is tainted, I think, for decades. Unless we get a significant change and a significant turnover of the active chiefs in this job, and an administration that sees the need to take it over and make a real change, whether it's going to be federal oversight or just a massive cleanup, this is a stain that will take decades. Just think about that. majority of the job, and I think it's more than 50% on this job right now, has less than 5 years. So their entire career has been under the Eric Adams administration. This is all they know. And at this point, they have a different perspective and view. They've only worked with body cameras. They've only worked with these nefarious characters that are running the police department. I feel sorry for them. And they don't even know what their mission is. So this is just a complete mishmash. It's complete chaos. I mean, working in the police department right now, it must be a confusing place to be.
Yeah. Just to go back on what John said, I'm going to, in defense of this handle, because if you guys don't know already by now, and those at 1PP, if you haven't put 2 and 2 together, I had another handle online. My handle is Alamo Defender. If you haven't put 2 and 2 together by now, the Alamo 77. So I had that handle for a while, and then John said, you know what, people need to know about your story, and that's when I came on the show, when I created a new handle for myself with my full name and everything on it. So in defense of the lieutenant, that handle, I get it. It's tough to come out here because I for a fact I know that by becoming public now, if I go back on the job is going to target me. I know that. So he's going to become a target the minute he becomes becomes public, but it becomes easier for him to, or whoever it is, to talk about these things. It's because when you have that handle, you have to worry, oh, did I give up too much information that people could put 2 and 2 together who I am? No, it's a lot easier when you can just get your face out there and tell people how exactly you're feeling, and it becomes easier for. Also, it'll become a lot easier for people to trust the source that they're hearing it from. But I understand it's a difficult decision for a lot of people, because a lot of people aren't prepared for that public backlash, and for like an organization as big as the NYPD to go after you. Even in retirement, I'm sure guys are going to go after him if he makes his handle public. But it just becomes easier, and I'm personally glad I did, because I get to tell the department face, and they know who's it's coming from, how much they screwed up and how much they're buffoons. And I think it's freedom,
Yeah, and to be fair, I'm not picking on that handle. I'm just talking about overall. Like, I'm not picking on that handle. I think that handle's posted a lot of professional things. I think all that posts I've seen are professional. But through my time of doing this, there's all of these unknown handles, and they come out, and sometimes they say horrible things. And I'm like, would you really say that if that was your name? Would you really say that? But yet you're tagging me in it, and you feel comfortable, and you want me to share it or something, or you're sending me information that's defamatory, and I say, I think that we should all be held accountable to our words. And I get if you're active, I understand that. I understand if you got kids on the job that you're afraid, and I totally get that. But there's a lot of people with zero reason to be afraid that are still afraid, and yet they want to say crazy things online. And I'm worried about my pension. Oh, so I'm not, like, I shouldn't be worried about my pension. Like, what are you worried about? So you'll give up the freedoms for safety? Is that what you're saying? You'll give up your freedom for safety? That's what you're telling me. That's what happened in 2020, is we gave up freedom for safety. You gave up your freedom willingly because, I want to go on my cruise. Oh, I want to go to the restaurant I like to go out to eat. I'm Italian, I like to go out. It's like, oh, so that's all it took? That's all it took. And I think everyone's like, oh yeah, you retired. No, I didn't retire. I was forced to put my papers in. And that day I was on the news. And 2 days later, I was creating an online handle with my own name. And I've been out here doing this for the last 3 years. So I didn't just do it then. I've been standing behind my own words, and it was revolutionary at the time. It was absolutely revolution, because no one ever did it to that point, and everyone was telling me to stop.
It's true.
John, don't. I was like, so you're telling me to stop telling the truth? That's what you're telling me. You're telling me that we don't live in America anymore. We live in communist Cuba. I can't do a podcast. I can't go on the news. I can't say the things that I say in the locker room, the things that I said. That's what you're telling me. And so I'm not picking on Lieutenant Douchebag. But like, it seems to me that person's retired. That's all I'm saying. And if you are retired, then you should be out here with us.
John, I think you make a great point. You know, Marlon, when we kept your identity secret, right? We both agreed. We all agreed. I said I would never out you or put out your identity. But I think at that point you were kind of in purgatory, right?
Yeah,
you were recently terminated, and you were kind of in purgatory because at this point I don't think anyone ever believed that this would actually hold up. And we all thought, and I hope that you believe the same thing because I did. We believed at some point that people would come to their senses and that this would be normalized again. Like, wait a minute, this is wrong. The law was violated. We've gotten the science behind this. We've had numerous conversations publicly on all different facets that this has to go back to normal, and we need to restore all these great men and women that lost their lives over a vaccine mandate, right? But that never came. And at some point, you started to further remove yourself and accept the fact that life may have to move on, and you may never go back to the police department. And you started, you know, and we joined forces together. You started to speak out using your name. And to me, I think that makes sense. I think John used a great point because I do know the person behind that handle, and I would never oust their identity. But I do feel that at some point they need to come out because I think that when John and I started doing this podcast together, we were kind of on an island by ourselves. I think we paved the way for people to understand that when you're in retirement, you're no longer in that arena, and that you have a right and a freedom to your First Amendment speech. And John and I both said, isn't it amazing the thought process? Because we both received numerous texts and we were contacted. Aren't you worried about your pension? Aren't you worried they're going to come after you? Aren't you worried that they possibly will hurt your family? And not necessarily physically, but financially, try to find a way to get to your family. And we both said to them, so just stop for a second. Just stop and think about what you're saying. How are you normalizing these various issues? Don't you see that as a problem? We have a right to our freedom of speech. We were once in a paramilitary organization. We took our oath, and when we retired, we now had the right to transition to become civilians and have that right to be a critic. While we worked in the police department, we remained stoic. And people say, well, why didn't you speak out then? We weren't supposed to speak out then. I utilized the avenues to speak out. On the job, I was pretty vocal about what was right and what was wrong, but I was respectful of the rank structure and the hierarchy as well. And I took the paths that were there that were not working, which is why this podcast has grown even more. I spoke to my unions. I said, can we have a conversation with the journalists and sit down and explain what's going on, how I'm targeted as the most targeted by the Civilian Complaint Review Board, by an overzealous Civilian Complaint Review Board. And they said, no, they didn't give me that opportunity. And yet, of course, they had the context. I know how that works. And I spoke with my bosses on the job, said, what are we going to do about Cop Watch? Because it's come to the point where they're stalking my entire career. What are you going to do? Are you going to intervene? Because obviously there's a connection there with the Civilian Complaint Review Board, and they didn't because they were more concerned about their own careers. So I took every opportunity, but now we're civilians, and that's what people don't understand. They need to take out that idiot shit they implant in your head when you join the police academy, and you should not be concerned like, wow, are they going to go after your pension? Are we committing a crime? No. And so the fact that they've normalized this because you've been institutionalized by the police department, and it's not a rational thought to think, oh, wow, they can go after John and Eric's pension because they're talking about the police department. I mean, think about what you're saying. We're giving criticism. And as John uses an analogy, I think it's funny, but it's true. People narrate football games. They narrate UFC fighters. They retire. They narrate a fight. We're narrating the police department. The police department is a combat sport, right? So we're narrating what's going on in that combat sport. And if that is going to get us imprisoned and attacked, you need to ask yourself, wow. So I hope that John and myself and now Marlon and Sal and Rob and Ron create the pathway for more cops that retire to speak about what's going on. And I don't think we say it in a hateful way at all. I don't think on this network, I don't think that we say it in a hateful way and that it's banter and that we're just full of piss and vinegar. I think we give it a professional, fair assessment because we want a better version of the police department. If anything, John Shell and Kaz Daughtry and these people say, wow, these guys really do love the police department. They've taken their time out in retirement to spend on giving fair analysis about what's going on in the police department, this entire administration. If it was just full of piss and vinegar, it would be personal attacks. But this has been nothing but professionalism. So for that, please, Marlon, I really appreciate since day one you speaking out, and I have nothing but respect and admiration for you. And what happened to you is just insane. It's insane. It's insane that we've actually normalized at this point. And there's people that actually feel, oh wow, yeah, he should be terminated. This is disgusting. That's why we need to look at what's happening in Florida right now, where they remove vaccines from the law. I think it's fantastic. It needs something that needs to go to New York and the entire country.
Yeah. Yep. Well said, Eric.
Yeah. All right, people. 3 hours. Anything else before we run out of here?
Yeah, I just want to say it's interesting doing on the phone, right? Because I can't see the comments, but thank you for the engagement. You guys put on an awesome job. I was able to catch glimpses of it. Awesome show as always. I'm glad I was able to jump in for the last couple of minutes, and I really do thank everyone. And if you are retired and you're now a civilian, be proud of who you are, be proud of your service, and you have a right to critique the police department, especially now. Make it better, right? Make the police department that version that we were proud of. Omar, I see a comment. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. So with that being said, Marlon, John, close it out, and thanks for letting me jump in for the last couple of minutes. I'm glad I made it. Thanks, fellas. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, guys. I see the contribution by Frankie, and thanks again, Frankie. And you guys, like I said before, keep an eye out on Frankie's case, okay? And if you have time, just go inside that trial room, see the kangaroo court you're gonna face yourself, and realize, like we said here, the best way to confront this corruption and this nonsense is to come right out, and and shout out to that handle, that lieutenant, because he has put out some good info, and we appreciate as many voices as we can get who are speaking out against this, because this is how we're going to get change eventually. So
yeah, but that's my point in the whole thing is like it's not a voice until you come out. You weren't a voice. Well, whatever that handle was that you used to use, it wasn't a voice, dude. Nobody respects it. You know what I mean? And that's my whole point. So like, and that's my point in the thing. It's like, well, do you ever hear the old statement? They can't lock us all up. Like if we're all thinking the same thing, why aren't we all saying it? Why are we all afraid? And that's the whole thing. It's like, and so, a lot of people always shit on me about everything that I do. And I'm like, well, hey, I don't see you saying anything. I don't see you saying anything. I didn't see you saying anything in 2021 and 2020. I was out there. I was throwing myself everywhere. I didn't see anybody saying shit. Now that we could all talk about COVID, everybody wants to be like, oh yeah, no, that was wrong. Oh, what? I didn't. Really? I thought you were all about it. Oh, yes. Now it's okay to be Catholic again? Oh, it's okay. We could talk about God. Oh, you have faith again. And like, and so, that's my thing is like, and I keep saying it is like, everything that happened in 2021, we're worse off now. That could happen much worse now. We haven't learned from it. We haven't done anything about it. Our politicians are holding us accountable. And it's because of all of our fear of saying the truth and speaking the truth. And the truth should be the ultimate goal that we're trying to get to. And we're not. We're still hiding. You know what I mean? And that's the shit that bothers me. It really does. It bothers me a lot, man, because I'm like, nobody could tell the truth. Even when it comes to the shot, like, hey, listen, sorry, didn't work, people. You got lied to. If it did work, you wouldn't be on your 17th booster. I'm sorry, you wouldn't be on your 17th booster. You wouldn't be. And if you believed in the vaccine and you actually weren't a vax denier and you weren't a science denier, you wouldn't need a mandate because you would think that it works and nobody else needs to do it. And you would say, there's a guy down the block from my house. He has a "Don't tread on me" flag, but he believes in vaccine mandates. I'm like, dude, the ultimate tread on me is you put this in your body, or to put this in your body so you could work. That's the ultimate "don't tread on me," dude.
John, I got a question for you before we go. I know it's 3 hours and 3 minutes we're going to cut out, but because I was thinking about this, all kidding aside, I really thought about this. I said, wow, I honestly feel sorry for John Shell at this point. I said, wow, does he realize he's the chief of the department, the largest police department in the world, and it's probably the most honorable position you could be in? But for him, he's so concerned about what people say about it, which really, to me, I think about his insecurities, right? Like, he must be thinking, like, wow, I must be doing a terrible job, and like it bothers him what we're saying. Do you think there's redemption for him? Like, all kidding aside, like, I really thought about this. Do you think there's redemption for John Shell, or he stained his own character forever? Like all kidding aside, from acting out as a man child on social media.
I personally think there's redemption for everybody. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think John Shell's done anything that like is like, yeah, all right, he took a life doing police work, and there's a lot of nuances in that, and it wasn't an easy situation. I don't think he woke up that morning and wanted to be in that situation. You know what I mean? And so I think that he's self-tormented, and I think that, you know, every day's a new day on this earth, and you could wake up and be somebody else. Like I said, the Apostle Paul, who was credited with being one of the founders and the strongest voices in the Catholic Church, was at one time murdering Christians. He's apostle in the Catholic faith. Like, he was truly sorry for what he did, and he gave up his life as a result of it. Ended up getting skinned alive for telling the truth. And, you know, I mean, I don't think I'm pretty sure that dude redeems himself. If you're willing to stand up and say the truth and get skinned alive, I mean, I think, I think you could pretty much redeem yourself. But, you know, I think the bigger thing is this, right? Like, this is what people always scared of. Oh, I can't go on a podcast, bro, because if I go on a podcast, you know, then I'm going to go to jail, you know? And I'm like, wait. Time out. I'm like, time out. I was like, so you're saying that your thoughts are horrible thoughts and you're a horrible person, and if you go out on a podcast or you do an interview, you're such a horrible person that things are going to come back at you? And it's not a true statement, because like, people say that's just a dumb statement. They don't really mean what they're saying. What they're really saying is, I feel less than. I'm worried about all of the bad things I've done in the past becoming exposed, because I've created this persona that I lie to myself and I lie to everyone around me about who I am. And that's exactly what they're saying. I can't do that because, someone's going to know that I got arrested when I was a kid. Someone's going to know that I've had a failed relationship. Somebody's going to know that I was once a jealous boyfriend, or I did this, or I once got into a fist fight here, or I did that, or I said this, or I did that. And the truth of the matter is, we're all terrible people, and there's redemption for all of us. Just accept who the hell you are and don't worry about it. Don't worry about what people got to say. You know, again, you ever watch the 8 Mile movie? I thought that was a great movie at the end with what's his name? Eminem. Because he took all of his fears and all of his embarrassments, that he was trailer trash, that he was and he had dumb friends, that he was a white kid, wanted to be a black kid, that his friend was a black kid who they said wanted to be a white kid. And he took all those fears and he just said, yeah, that's who I am. And then nobody could make fun of him anymore. And nobody had anything bad to say about him. And so, and that's the thing. I think that if John Shell holds on to all the nonsense that he did throughout his career in retirement, I think that he's got a hard road ahead of him. I think that if he lets it go and just has honest conversations, I was wrong about that, but this is whatever. I don't see the road to redemption. We got the show ready for you, John. It's called Happy Hour with John Shell, Finance Unfiltered, Thursdays at 6 p.m.
That's what I think. I think there's redemption for everyone, and that was my point. My dad was here the other day, last week, with Sal Greco, and I believe there's redemption for him too. It's what you do in life that redeems you. So I do believe that John Shell is self-conflicted, and I think that's why he acts in the manner he does on social media. I think he's self-conflicted, and maybe he is tormented by that shooting because it's questionable. Maybe he's tormented by the fact that he utilized a fake identity for his taxes. Maybe he's tormented by he's in the circle of just the appearance of impropriety and corruption. And maybe somehow he's linked to it and it's on his mind. But clearly his actions are not rational and shows there's a lot of negativity in his life. So I do believe there's redemption for him, and the redemption may start on this podcast. So John Shell, when you come on, there's your path to redemption.
Yeah. Well said. Hey, Omar, if you're scared of them transferring you to Staten Island or wherever, then they have power over you. You know, if you're a good cop, it doesn't matter where they put you in a busy command. Okay, all right, I'll go out there and make some collars. You know, put you in a slow command. Okay, all right, I'll take my time. I'll eat good. I'll have coffee. You know, it doesn't matter where you put me. You know, and I know for a fact that if I go back, they'll send me to the Bronx. But again, you have no power over me. If you're a good cop, you love being a cop and you love doing your job, you know, and you go to bed at night with thinking that you did a good job today, and rather than you trying to, you know, stroke your ego and lie to yourself about what you did, like we just talked about. Okay, so.
And for the 1,000th time, we're not talking about active guys. We understand you'll be retaliated. You actually don't have a First Amendment right if you want to keep your career. So we're not talking about active guys. We're talking about in retirement. When the world turns real crazy, then yeah, I'm talking. When the world leans on mandates, then I'm talking to you active guys too, because then it's bigger than your job and your career and your pension and you'll get being promoted and your weekends off. Yeah, you know, we're talking about, like, all these Dems are now talking about gun confiscation again, right? Every incident, the NYPD didn't get a chance to do it on this last attack because the guy only tried to stab a cop in the head with a knife instead of shoot them. But if it was the other way around, they'd be talking about, you know, getting rid of guns from law-abiding Americans. And again, I laugh at people. Oh, they'll never get my guns because, you know, I'm going to say that I lost them in a boating accident. I'm like, no, you're going to be the first one that hands your gun. You're going to be the first one. If they go door to door, like you just telling me that right there tells me that you're going to be like, okay. And I'm like, that's why. And I'm like, because you wouldn't even think about that. You wouldn't find a way to try to comply or to try to lie to sneak and hide your gun. What the hell is it good for when no one else has one? You're done. You're done, bro. You're just hoping the alligator's going to eat your last, but the alligator's just staring there and you can have your little 9mm hidden somewhere. Like, it ain't happening. Like, you know what? If you really are going to stand up for the United States Constitution, stand up for the Second Amendment, stand up for what you believe in, you're going to say, absolutely not. You're not taking my gun. And that's it. You're not going to be talking about that you lost it in a boating accident or anything else. And the same thing's true with free speech. If you believe in it, then where the hell are you?
Yeah. On that note, well said, brother. Thank you, everyone. 3 hours and 10 minutes. Marlon, John, thank you for an awesome show, and I'm glad I got a chance to jump in a couple of minutes. Alaska's a beautiful place, and in 40 miles, I will be out of America, and then on my way back.
Communist China. I don't think you're allowed to transmit from Canada, Eric. I think Trudeau. I think they lock you down for that one.
Well, they'll be American any day now, you know. So just go hit Alberta and you're good, bro. That's Texas North, man.
Hey, Marlon, by the way, I want to thank the chat. Anytime that we get coffee or donuts, you know, I think when Marlon announces it, it should be Bitcoin. So for Marlon, if you give any donations, it's Bitcoin. So thank you, everybody. John, well said, brother. Listen, the bottom line is realize, and I hope this podcast is significant, that free speech is powerful. We have to protect it. It's a God-given right, but it's a right that we actually have to protect. It's a right that's been fought for, and we have to still fight for it, whether it's physically or speaking out. We have to keep that fermented and keep it solid. So thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Outstanding.
All right, people. Find us on Unfiltered. We'll be back at you. Check out Sal Greco tomorrow, 13:05.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?